Right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Places and Resources Overview Committee meeting on the 30th of January. Thank you all for turning up nicely on time. Just a brief reminder to when you use the microphones here, please do speak into the microphone rather than towards the person you're speaking to in the audience. And to turn off the light every time you've finished speaking. And finally, when you do come to speak, can you please introduce yourself and say what's your name, obviously, and anything else you want to put down as your role, either as an officer or as a council member. Anyway, on to item 1. Any apologies?
No apologies received today.
Thank you. The minutes of the meeting held on the 21st of November. Are we happy that they are a true and correct record of the meeting? Yes? No corrections or anything? No? Good. Okay, well, I will sign that in due course. Then on to any declarations of interest for any items being discussed today. No, that's good. There's no public participation today. There's no, pardon me, there's no questions being put in or motions or anything like that. Public participation, there is one question from a councillor under item 6, Councillor Monks, who can't be with us in person today because his son's not very well, but if you'd like to read out your question.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Craig Monks, Bedminster Ward, and thank you for allowing me to join you remotely. So my question is that in the summer of 2024, I asked full council what steps were being taken to deliver on promises to clean up Dorset's river and seas. The leader of the council stated the water company representatives would be invited to meet with councillors to discuss improving our waterways. When I followed up at a cabinet meeting in the autumn, I was informed that this would be referred to the relevant overview committee as part of a new policy. Having reviewed the Dorset Local Nature Recovery Strategy, I see no direct mention of a standalone policy to improve our water quality, nor are water companies listed as consultative bodies. Could the committee clarify why there is no proposed policy to directly address water quality, and with water companies being invited to work with the council as a consultative body? Thank you.
Thank you. And who is going to answer this?
Bridget Betts, Environment Policy and Partnerships Manager. I can only answer the second part of the question, I'm afraid, because that's directed at the Local Nature Recovery Strategy, and I leave that. The answer to that is the Local Nature Recovery Strategy has no policies associated with it, but it does have priorities, and this is a requirement of DEFRA. Specifically, Priority 4 focuses on rivers, streams and wetlands. It includes activities to improve water quality for the benefit of wildlife and people, often using habitat creation, enhancement as a nature-based solution to improve water quality. And there are several other priorities also include activities that would benefit water quality, such as natural process-led conservation or nature-based solutions. Water companies were included in stakeholder analysis, and the strategy highlights how every sector has had a role to play. In addition, several local experts in the water environment have been included in the development of the strategy, and that includes the Environment Agency, Dorset Catchment Partnerships, and the Poole and Stour catchments, which are hosted by Wessex Water, and the West Dorset's Rivers and Coastal Streams catchment, which is hosted by the Dorset National Landscapes, and in addition, Natural England Conservation Advisor for Water and Wetlands. In addition to the water companies having been contacted as part of the wider engagement process, that's been done through regular meetings with Wessex Water around water quality and biodiversity net gain and nutrient mitigation. There's been examples of habitat creation projects which Wessex Water have led and are included in the strategy, such as the Leaky Dam on page 64. And these are often delivered in partnership with farmers and landowners. Bournemouth Water, South West Water have joined the Nature Recovery Dorset Network for their work for habitats and species on their site management plans. And Wessex Water accepted the invitation to speak at the LNS Farm and Landowner event on their work with farmers to deliver nature-based solutions. And that was attended by 120 farmers. Other representatives of Cross Water Environment have attended events, workshops to help shape the strategy. This includes water companies. We also have mapping from the Rivers Trust as part of the LNRS process, and that will be available to all people. And during the next steps of the LNRS consultation process, we'll be reviewing the mapping with water companies, comparing how our maps can be used alongside their own modelling of natural capital markets and any planned works. So these ongoing relationships with water companies are key to implementation.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ireland, as the portfolio holder for this subject, do you wish to comment on anything at this stage?
I can. I guess what we'd really need to do is find some mechanism of bringing the Wessex Water representatives into the council chamber. I guess that's probably scrutiny rather than overview, I suspect, because it's not being driven by a policy of ours, but it's actually looking at how they perform. So I guess officers probably need to take that away and work out how we do that.
Thank you for the answer. There is no debate on such at this point in time, but we do have obviously under item 9 later on the agenda, we will be talking about the general overall strategy. So members can feel free to join in the debate at that point. Okay. Good. Okay, then on to item 7, the draft place and resources overview work programme. Anthony.
Do any councillors have any items they wish to add to the programme moving forwards?
Thank you. So in the Cabinet Forward Plan, it talks about the economic growth strategy being delivered at the end of January. But in the Place and Overview Forward Plan, it shows that we won't actually be discussing that today, or it'll come later. So I'm guessing there's been a slight slip, but it's still saying the one date in the Cabinet. Is that because it's historic? Thank you.
The date which is going to Cabinet yet hasn't been agreed. It's being moved potentially to April Cabinet. So until it's agreed, they won't change it on the plan, which means it's going to come to us in March, which is why it says March on our plan. But we don't know for sure yet.
For the clarification.
Anything else on this item? Councillor Tarr.
Is that better? Yeah. Councillor Tarr, I'm the Winterbourne ward. The parishes at the moment some parishes are keen to proceed with their lower speed limits than they have at the moment, of various sorts, from 50 to 40 and things like that. And I think the process at the moment, which we agreed at a previous meeting a couple of years ago, I think, is very bureaucratic. In fact, one of the councillors stood up and said, this is a licensed bureaucracy. It's not a way of proceeding with matters. So I would like to put that to be put on the agenda fairly urgently, because these parishes are doing all sorts of things, jumping through all sorts of hoops, which are totally unnecessary in law and in practice, and cause an awful lot of work for people. It just slows everything down for everybody, for the councillors and for the council itself. So thank you for that.
I mean, yes, we have an ongoing work programme, and certainly speed limits is part of that process, and will be dealt with in the near future. Councillor Northam.
I'd like to support Councillor Tarr's suggestion, and I think it goes beyond the parishes. In Weymouth, with its much larger population, that process is unworkable. And what we need is a more systematic assessment of traffic management across the town, rather than trying to do it piecemeal by individual action groups. And I've had a discussion with officers on this in the past. I just need to find somebody who's prepared to progress it. So if that could be included, not just the parish view, but also the large towns where we need a systematic view, not a bottom-up view. Thank you.
Councillor Taylor.
Councillor David Taylor, Chance St Mary. Actually, this is quite wide of my respect, because the fact is we have a lot of problems regarding Stinsford and Slyers Lane and Cuckoo Lane because when there's problems on the main roads, it automatically gets diverted onto the country roads. We've been going for months now to try and get some traffic regulations to speed slowing down and basically other directions to make sure that it doesn't go through the villages. It's also going over various bridges like Bockhampton, where lorries are going across it, which is way above the weight limits that should be. So the fact that there is major problems every time something happens on the dual carriageway or something like that, the roads get blocked. We've been trying to get this sorted out for 3 years now, and the thing is that we cannot get a response back to see where we're going forward. So I would take this as a consideration that there is a concern for all our residents across Dorset as well, not just my constituency. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I think members are making it very clear that they wish to us to do some serious examination of the transport and traffic issues that are affecting the whole of the Dorset County area, whether it be towns or rural parts of the area. And I'm sure that is going to come up with a fair degree of prioritisation in the next few weeks. So we will be coming back to you with a proposal fairly soon. Thank you. Anything else? No? Okay. In which case, then on to item 8, our draft customer strategy. Is Councillor Hope here? No? No, if you want to. Go on.
Good morning, councillors. Thank you, Chair. Delighted to be here at Overview Committee today with my colleague here, Anthony. I'm Lisa Cotton, Corporate Director for Transformation, Customer and Cultural Services. So the papers before you today represent our draft customer strategy, and they represent the voice of our customers with our aim and ambition to improve their experience when connecting with us. This is a key enabling strategy that supports how we work now and how we will work in the future. By understanding the needs and preferences of our customers, we can improve efficiency, quality, accessibility and inclusion. Importantly, to continuously improve that customer experience. Our draft customer strategy, and as we hope to embed that, it is a living document. It will evolve in response to customer changing needs so that we really create that sustainable and adaptable approach, placing our customers, families, businesses at the heart of our future council. The strategic intent of this strategy aligns with our council plan, with particular focus on the key priority of communities for all. And there is also a significant correlation with our wider transformation ambitions under our future council. Our future operating model for the council will change our ways of working, enabling the future ambitions for improving customer experience. So hopefully with that brief overview, I can now pass over to Anthony to give you a presentation and go through the key points of the papers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Then Anthony.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, councillors here today, and good morning to everyone and colleagues here today. I'm Anthony Palumbo, Head of Customer, and pleased to present this report to you all. We really welcome your feedback. We want to deliver successful outcomes for our customers and communities, allowing them to access services in ways that suit their particular needs and circumstances. The report very much sets the baseline for our aspirations in delivering improved customer experience, evidence-based on what our customers are telling us. It will flex and adapt as needed over time to ensure that it remains relevant to the changing needs of our customers. What the report is proposing for discussion today is members are invited to review and provide feedback to refine and develop this strategy as needed. And with committee's input, Councillor Ryan Hope, the Cabinet portfolio holder, will use delegated executive powers to formally approve the draft customer strategy. So, to the purpose of the draft strategy. Well, the customer strategy reflects what our customers are telling us. It sets the expectations that our customers are looking for in achieving consistent, high-quality customer experience by providing easy-to-use, accessible and inclusive services that are convenient for our customers. Our understanding of these ambitions has been informed by listening to, first and foremost, the voice of our customers. So it is evidence-based. This has included themes from the Dorset Council Resident Survey conducted at the end of 2023. Most recently, the big conversation engagement events, which helped shape the new council plan. Then we have considered the views received from our councillors based on the observations and experience that customers regularly share and the feedback and comments given to us at the corporate services event held for councillors in July last year. We have also used significant amounts of data and insight that we continually capture, analysing satisfaction results from the customer promise and feedback received through the website, as well as interpreting information that we have been collecting for many years through existing systems and contact channels. And finally, we took guidance from established frameworks, such as the Government Digital Service Standards and the Dorset Council's design principles, helping us understand the needs of customers based on significant research that has already taken place. So using that evidence, we think about how people like to access services. All of these valuable sources of data have given us an understanding of the customer experience with the council. So what is it that we are hearing about customer experience? Our customers told us they don't want to be passed from pillar to post. We see it all the time. Some examples: requests to school admissions when the inquiry actually relates to school transport, emails to planning when the matter is a building control issue, contacts to children's services when the case is actually handled by the school. There are many more examples, and that doesn't include the confusion that our customers experience with services that are delivered by town and parish councils and those that are provided by Dorset Council. It is important to mention our customers don't see functions or departments within the organisation. When they are contacting us, they just see the council and they want their inquiry resolved as quickly as we can at point of contact. Our customers would like more information, advice and guidance available locally. Navigating the complexities of the council can be confusing and frustrating, with customers unclear at times on how to make contact, where to go or who to speak to. It's no wonder it's baffling when the council has 225 published telephone numbers, 450 email addresses and 60 plus different front doors for the council. Customers have told us they like the convenience in accessing a range of information through trusted places, such as our libraries and community hubs, and where appropriate, being signposted to the right resource and support they need. Customers also told us they want convenience and choice how they currently access other services in their everyday lives, such as on-demand real-time services. We were also hearing customers don't want to chase us. They want us to manage their expectations and let them know when something is likely to happen. And if their inquiry cannot be resolved immediately, they want us to keep them informed along the way. They also don't want to contact us multiple times to tell us the same information. The amount of times that we hear communications being sent to the wrong place, even though the council tax bill is correctly addressed. Or even worse, a loved one that recently passed away, yet we are still contacting them, despite the fact that Dorset Council registered the death. On average, the same customer details are stored on 4 different systems, so it doesn't come as a surprise. Customers do get frustrated when they have to provide the same information time and time again to different departments. Customers also told us that they want services to be simple and straightforward. They don't want to be concerned about the clunky nature of the systems that we have surrounded ourselves with. They just want their inquiry efficiently and effectively resolved through streamlined and joined up systems, processes, and resources. There is also a desire for us to proactively contact our customers about opportunities that would support them in their day-to-day lives. For example, reminders and notifications about the use of existing services, key life events that we know about from the information that we hold on our records, as well as promotion of health and wellbeing programs and services, supporting customers' current needs and providing value-added benefits. And finally, they would like us to evolve as we listen and learn about our customers' changing needs. Based on what our customers are telling us, we can see that different approaches are required to meet diverse needs. Some customers are telling us they would rather not contact us at all, preferring to interact in ways that embrace automation. Conversely, others are saying there are times when they would just rather speak to a person. So we need to be flexible in our approach when considering how customers access services. And this is a living document. It will change over time to reflect the needs of our customers. So these are the key messages based on our customers' experiences right now. They provide the baseline from where we can start to shape and design our future customer aspirations. But before I hand back to the chair to round up, let me give you a few typical examples to put this into perspective and make it real. You would think changing an address was straightforward and easy for our customers. A Dorset resident contacts our council tax department to change their address. The address is updated and now that's complete for that service. Now, in other separate interactions with the council, they have to contact individual departments to update their records, elections to remain eligible to receive a postal vote, parking services to have their new permits issued for their on-street residents' parking, waste services for their garden waste, subscription to be transferred to their new address, and their local library to update their membership records. This company requires the customer to contact 5 different areas of the council. And for many customers, there will be many more that they have to contact. So, if we could look to join up our systems, no matter where or how the customer chooses to contact us, if everything else could be updated on the back of that one contact, that would save the customer and the council a lot of time and effort. Now, there is no intention for us to overmanage customer expectations. It takes time to deliver changes like this. Although this is just one simple example of the possibilities that could be achieved. Let me give you one more example. A family registering the birth of their first child. At point of contact, registration services processes the legal requirements. Done. That's normally where the interact for the customer ends. Whilst there is plenty of information, advice and support for families, why go searching for it if the council can proactively bring that information and advice to our customers? So, what a difference it would make if the customer signed up to receive added value services that with reminders and notifications that they may require now and in the future, all depending on their preference and circumstances. So the council knows about the life event, the birth of a child, so they could receive proactive, timely notifications, such as the link to the Dorset Family Information Service, as well as the Family Hub in their local area, and link to the child's date of birth, a nudge at key points in their child's life, such as childcare funding, starting to think about school admissions, applying for free school meals. And depending on what's important to that family, they could also receive reminders and notifications about other services, making their life just a little bit easier, such as bin collection days or roadworks that may affect their journey on the school run or to the office. Or they may have particular areas of interest, such as planning applications in adjacent streets. From a customer experience perspective, this makes things simple and easy for them, not having to navigate the complexities of the council, not even having to contact the council to find out what's happening, because we are bringing what they need when they need it directly to them. So it's important to mention we will always look to enable the able, so that our customers benefit from efficient, streamlined and simplified ways of working. This then allows us to concentrate our focus on the people that need our help the most. Now, we also are very much aware through the feedback that we have received that there are people who are unable to engage in digital ways, whether that be due to cost, connectivity issues, or the lack of digital skills and confidence, or just because they don't want to. The important thing to mention here, customers can continue to access a range of services through our local libraries. Libraries are a welcoming front door to council services, including free Wi-Fi for internet browsing, use of public access computers looking for job opportunities, completing online courses, checking emails, and much more. Self-service customer terminals, the Dorset Council website at Library Connects and Library Plus locations, as well as an iPad lending scheme with access to free data loaded to the device. Additionally, there is customer-facing support in our libraries through our library customer advisors, who are all embedded digital champions, and the opportunity to speak to customer services at customer access points in Library Connect or through dedicated phone lines. And Dorset Council also has an extensive digital inclusion programme, including the offer of digital support and training to help people develop digital skills. This is further supported by digital champions and an extensive community network of volunteers, providing people with help to get online or stay connected. There is also the Digital Doorway device donation scheme, removing barriers to digital access. So looking at the opportunities identified in the delivery plan, they highlight the chances to achieve a consistent customer experience by improving digital services for customers to self-serve anytime, anywhere, ensuring simplified access without needing to contact or visit the council, providing timely information and guidance within trusted community settings, supporting customers with the help and advice they need locally, increasing the variety and quality of services available at initial contact points, enabling faster resolution times, using technology to better manage service demand with proactive notifications, timely communications, and personalised experiences, ensuring services are accessible for everyone, regardless of their background, abilities, or circumstances. The important thing to highlight here, we have considered and will continue to consider the needs of our customers, and services will be designed accordingly. So there will always be ways that customers can still continue to access council services, ensuring that people are not excluded, whether that be calling, using digital tools, or in person. Secondly, this is the voice of our customer, setting the ambitions that they would like us to strive towards. This customer voice is our guiding force, providing the motivation for us to improve. It is the baseline from where we can start our journey towards improving our customer experience. So, Before handing back to the Chair, the final slide is a reminder of the recommendations as follows. Members to consider and comment on the strategy. With the comments received and considered today, Councillor Ryan Hope to use delegated executive powers to formally approve the customer strategy. So I will now hand back to our Chair to open the discussion, and we'll look forward to answer questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anthony. That's very, very informative and a very positive presentation. Thank you. The way we structure our debate is for questions to come from the members who are not part of this committee. Yeah, okay. So, you want to go first? I'm part of the committee. Yeah. Oh, sorry, you are. Sorry. Ray Bryan, Councillor Bryan.
Yes, good morning. It's Councillor Ray Bryan, a ward member for St Leonard's and St Ives, that beautiful area over in the east. I'm reminding people because there is an eastern area that we also need to concentrate on. The point I'd like to raise is fabulous presentation. Your passion came through loud and clear, but I have a few reservations on some of the things that you've said. My concern is that we still have a lot of people in the Dorset Council area who aren't internet savvy, don't have access, can't get access. In some areas, especially the rural areas, connectivity is worse than it is in the third world, and this needs to be addressed. We've spent a lot of money trying to get access across Dorset. I would like to see us put pressure on our digital team to make sure that they push that a little bit harder. Sorry to mention this, but I've had a recent incident where training has become an issue. It's all very well having specialists that are going to take the phone calls, but if they're not trained correctly, and I'll give you an incident, one of my residents phoned in, and as soon as he gave the BH24 postcode, was told to contact BCP, which is a bit sad because BH24 is definitely Dorset. I know we come under Ringwood, but it is Dorset area. You passed a comment over customers have told us. It's nice to hear, but what about the customers who can't tell you because they don't have this access? And I'd like to I'd like you to explore that a bit further if you would. And again, I'll wrap up on digital support. It's lacking in so many areas. For me to get Wi-Fi, I have to use a satellite because I don't have any access. And it's not just the digital support of Wi-Fi. Our mobile phone network is a disgrace. And again, I'm hopeful that before we go ahead with this, we can solve some of the problems. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah.
Thank you for the question. If I just start by covering off digital exclusion. We know that the resident survey of 2023 indicated that 95% of residents have used the internet, either for work, at home, or in other places. This aligns with the local government informed figures for Dorset of 93.3%. However, we recognise that this is not telling us that 95% of residents can use the internet easily for all functions. Currently, 25% of residents are digitally excluded, down from 30% pre-pandemic. We are looking to enable the able by continuing to offer digital support and training to help people develop digital skills. This is supported by digital champions and an extensive community network of volunteers. Customers can also come in to our local libraries and also tell us about the issues they're having or the concerns, and those will be listened to and will inform our strategy moving forward with regards to digital.
Thank you, Chair. Just to add to that, thank you for your comment regarding the training, and we have picked up that inquiry. You know, our teams are responding to across the whole range of 450 different services in the organisation, and now and again they will get it. They may get something wrong, but we absolutely appreciate that feedback. And just to complement Anthony's response there, we are absolutely making sure that we retain all of our services across telephone, across those face-to-face locations. So whilst we absolutely are going to improve how customers can connect with us digitally, online, and whenever it's convenient for them, we always have those services available for those that can't. So those will be absolutely sustained, and training is always provided as soon as we pick up that something's gone wrong. So thanks for your feedback.
Thank you. And Councillor Hope, Olivia, you want to join us and make a comment at this point?
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. I just want to sort of speak in support really of the work here and the brilliant presentation and efforts by Anthony. On Tuesday night, we were challenged at Cabinet to say, does this piece of work align with our future council? And I really believe that the direction of this strategy does dovetail perfectly into the work that we're going to be delivering over the next few years with our future council, mainly around the automation and the AI, and it's perfectly aligned and it's very much listening to our customers. The other piece of work this dovetails into nicely is our open access of our libraries, as we look to extend that customer front door through those facilities. So I think, very much this customer strategy has been thought of along other pieces of work that are going on, and it is the right direction with other ways of direction and ways of working we are looking at as a council.
Great, thank you very much. I think what's clearly important about this is that we want to show as a council that we are open to new ideas, and if people have suggestions for ways to tackle digital exclusion, then we will look at those ways and bring them into the way we operate. This is not a question of laying out a plan and sticking it to religiously. As Anthony said, this is a living document. It will reflect changes in technology, changes in behaviour, both from our staff's point of view and from our customers' point of view as well. Now, are there any other questions from non-committee members? No, in which case we'll then go on to the members of the committee. Councillor Parks.
Well, Councillor Mike Parks, Ferndown North, also in the beautiful part of East Dorset. First of all, I'd like to thank Anthony for giving me the opportunity for a briefing ahead of this meeting, which was very useful to get a more in-depth understanding of what was being presented today. I just wanted to make a couple of points, and I fully embrace the digital engagement and the opportunities that gives. But we also just need to recognise those that are digitally able today may not be digitally able tomorrow. As time and age and other factors move on, it may be that we accept the fact that someone is able to do it today, but just recognise what we need to do for those people moving on. And the other bit is about the importance of the face-to-face contact points. And I, again, totally believe that the libraries are the right place to do it. I would just say currently it is disappointing that Ferndown is the largest inland town in Dorset. It has one of the largest libraries in Dorset, and yet it has no contact point. And I would just hope that we can, not only with Ferndown, any other libraries that don't have those contact points, that we can make that a priority, that we have those in there, because some of those libraries do serve larger areas than just the towns or villages that they're placed in. Thank you.
Did you want to comment on that? Yeah.
Thank you for the question. Just picking up the point about people not necessarily, whilst people might be able today, maybe not necessarily be able in the future, the quality impact assessment did pick that up, and where there is a decreasing level in digital skills for whatever reason, customers will still be able to access services in ways that suit their circumstances. And with regards to the customer access point in Ferndown Library, it is on the library strategy, and we are looking to develop that further to ensure that obviously we are meeting the requirements that have been set out in the delivery plan for that strategy.
Yeah, I take your point. I think one of the big problems is that technology moves on so fast. So it's a target that we're aiming for. It gets harder and harder over time. I mean, personally, I would have said 10, 15 years ago, I was fairly IT savvy, could do most things I needed to do, and was pretty comfortable with it all. Now there's so many new programs that are available out there, and it's very hard to keep up to date and in touch with all the new things that are coming along all the time. So it's something we obviously want to make sure that we keep up with the technology and available. Yes. So did you want to come back on that?
Yes, if I may, thank you. Just a supplementary. So I welcome the fact that you are looking at what happens with Ferndown Library. Could I push you for a timescale, please?
I don't have a time scale, sorry, Councillor Parks, not a time scale that I have here at the moment. The library strategy was adopted last year, and we've completed our transformation programme. So, but happy to come back to you on that. We'll have a conversation outside if that's okay. Yep. Thank you.
Councillor David Taylor next.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much, Anthony, for an excellent presentation. The thing is that I'm delighted with this. It means the fact that customer services at long last comes to the front of our organisation, because I've been dealing with customer service for the last 40 years of my working life. So I understand it quite candidly how important it is to go face-to-face or online or whatever by telephone to actually breach with the customer and give them what they want, not what we think they want, which is the most important thing. First of all, I'm going to come to the digital thing. Well raised, Ray. The fact is the digital footprint across Dorset is horrendous. Even in Dorchester, Old Poundbury, we do not have fibre. So therefore, you've got areas of concerns like that. Mobile connections in town, digital connection in town is horrendous. It doesn't work properly in the shops. So therefore, there's a digital footprint, which I ask for the committee to actually push forward to say, we need this sorting out properly. Customer service regarding the parish council, which you've mentioned as well. We have talked to Anthony at length about this. We still need that strong interaction with parish councils so that residents can be fully informed at all levels right across the board. But a plus factor, I say this is an excellent presentation. It's going the right way. And I'm going to commend one of your officers, which I think you know, Molly Pallister, for her excellent customer service. And I'd like to say keep up the good work, because you are doing fantastic. And that's praise from me personally. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Northam next, please.
Thanks, Councillor Northam from Upwey and Broadway in Weymouth. Just picking up on David's point there. The fibre went through to the Olympics in 2012. It's still got to get to some parts of Weymouth. So I agree with his point. It's being delivered by commercial practice, not by where is there a lack of. It's only picked up where there's a demand. And that means paying money. So that wasn't my point. I'd like also to thank Anthony for the chat that we had the other week. It was very useful. And as Councillor Hope says, this is the front view of transformation. And it's transformation that really, this needs to be heavily tied in with the transformation programme, and Anthony was stressing that to me. And I like the aspirational aspects of the strategy. I worry a little bit that it's setting expectations beyond what we might in practice be able to deliver. because we are operating services and our customers want the best services. And we know that some of our services are constrained by choices, difficult choices that are having to be made. So I'm worried about expectation setting, and when we communicate, we need to be realistic about those expectations. We had a chat about learning from other councils. I was very keen to understand what councils had actually implemented these advanced systems of customer interfacing. And I think that's really important that we get some experience from that, because they will have made mistakes and we don't want to make the same mistakes. I'm struggling to understand how Dorset Council works across its 450 services and who to talk to, and I get pushed from department to department periodically, and it takes some degree of persistence sometimes to work out how to phrase your question in such a way that it's understood by the people dealing with it. And that's my ignorance in the language that should be used. Gutters are the one that seems to get me in most trouble. But anyway, we've got to address this duplication and stovepiping across Dorset Council, and that's very much the transformation programme. And I think there's a really significant bit of systems analysis that needs to be done to properly understand how we do what we set out to do. So it's great about the training, but I'm not sure that we necessarily yet understand coherently how we do our business. Individually, lots of people understand how they do their bit, but how does it all fit together, particularly if we're going to go for this reduction of duplication and stovepiping? So I think that's a really important element that I'd like to be fed forward to Councillor Hope. And the only other aspect, last point, the aspect of this is many of the services that we have are not delivered by Dorset Council. They're delivered through our partnership arrangements. And this, being a double hatter from a council point of view, the public don't understand the differences in many instances, and why should they? But that goes beyond the town councils, the parish councils and Dorset Council. It goes into the partnership arrangements as well. So in time, we want to include all of this. And because this is such a big programme, I would have hoped to see trials, tests, rather than Big Bang, because Big Bang is a recipe usually for problems. So we need to be having a phased programme, and that I couldn't see anywhere in here. And again, Anthony said that will come through the transformation programme, and I'm content with that. So as a strategy, I'm happy to support it, but it needs to be setting realistic expectations. Otherwise, we will disappoint too many people. Thank you. There wasn't a question, but I hope there was enough. The invitation was to recommend things to go forward to Councillor Hope. Thank you.
Yeah. Did you want to add something to that?
Thank you very much for your comments, and absolutely take on board all of that, and where we can strengthen that in the strategy, we absolutely will. Making sure that we manage those recommendations, those expectations with our customers is an absolute priority for us, and we already have many of those mechanisms in place so that we can give that good expectation and make sure that that experience is personal as much as it possibly can. There is absolutely a requirement here for really good design on our services, and we have our digital team that work very closely with our customer team and are part of our transformation in the future, that think about those customer journeys and really take them to that through that insight and data, and so that we really do have that good customer design and service design, but there's always more to learn. And just to say, there are many councils that we have connections with. We can talk about that another time, but we have many close to us as well that have done a lot of work. But just to say, Dorset Council is really experienced already in this. We have a lot of service already within our customer front door and our pre-front door, our work with our partners and in our local communities. So we are building on some really good foundations, and we can really develop this strategy in line with all of those points made. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brown, I think you indicated next.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Piers Brown. I represent the Cranbourne Chase ward, which, as we all know, is the most beautiful ward in Dorset and even East Dorset. Sorry, Ray, to break it to you. You are in my wheelhouse. Customer service is the most important thing I think this council does. Without our customers, you know, we serve no purpose. And without good customer service, we cannot serve them efficiently. I come from the private sector, so I am customer obsessed. That's all we spend our time thinking about. And I really want the council to be the same. So I guess my first observation is I'm a little disappointed with the turnout from cabinet members into this here today, because customer service touches every single portfolio down to its core. So if we are going to take this strategy forward, it needs to be embedded into the organisation as a way of working. I also want to thank Councillor Mike Parks for raising the issue around digital exclusion. That is incredibly important that we make sure that our services are accessible by everyone. But equally, I think we need to remember the 75+% of our population who aren't digitally excluded and would become excluded from our services if we didn't offer a good digital offer as well, because I think that can be quite, we often forget about them. And the example I would like to give, but I think we can really take this strategy forward and think more about the customer is, you know, if you work a night shift, you're a security guard, you come home at 5 a.m, you've got an hour to kill before the kids, you need to start getting the kids up for school. That's your free time. That's when you're doing your life admin. That's very different to a lot of us who work 9 to 5. And those individuals deserve exactly the same level of customer service as someone who works a more traditional 9 to 5, you know, whatever that service may be. So I think we need to really think about all of our customers and how all of them can be excluded, not just through the digital prism. And I know that from speaking with Anthony that he gets it. And I think that's the highest praise that I can give. And so I'd like to thank him for that. Couple of observations within the strategy. I think couple of key bits are going to be partnership working. A lot of our customers don't understand and shouldn't have to learn to understand the difference between what Dorset Council does and their local town or parish council. So how do we help people get that issue resolved when they walk in through the door, not just of our organisation, but the organisation of our partners within the sector? I think that's very, very important. I think that looks like putting customer service points into our partner organisations, if that's something they're willing to host, gives a much better customer experience. And also about improving things like our telephone customer service route as well. You know, I'm going to give an example. If you go onto the Dorset Council website to report a flooding issue, it says in big red letters when you get halfway through the sales process, the reporting process, that if the flood covers the entire width of the carriageway, this is considered an emergency, and that you should call the council so it can be dealt with appropriately. So I came across some flooding, and as a good mystery shopper, I decided I would report the flooding over the phone as requested by the website. And halfway through doing so, number one, you're told about this at the end of inputting all of your details. It becomes quite clear the customer service agent on the end of the phone is just filling in the online form. Well, hang on a second. Not just has this created a worse customer experience for me, I'm also thinking the council's a bit backwards here, but also we've wasted that customer service agent's time and that resource when they could be helping someone because I was willing to do it online. So I'd also like to see more of our portfolio holders and senior leadership team doing mystery shopping so that we can get to the bottom of some of these issues, because that's just such a daft thing. Unless you experience it, you wouldn't know it was there. So I guess my big question for the team is going to be, what funding have you got in place? I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it publicly. And what are the KPIs or SMART objectives to go alongside this? Because in my time in local government, we see a lot of talk about customer service strategies. What are the deliverables? Everything within this report, none of it is objectionable. And I can sense the aspiration in the room, but how we go from aspiration to deliverables is the key bit. So I guess that's my question, is how do we take these aspirations on this page through to deliverables.
Thank you, Councillor, for the question. Can I just pick up about parish and town councils first? The chairman of the Dorset Association of Parish and Town Councils is keen for the customer strategy to be shared and briefings to take place to ensure that we are working together for our customers. This will also be covered in our Future Council community partnership work around our development of closer, more inclusive collaboration with our communities, towns, parishes and partners to ensure through preventative practice we really enable opportunities for all our residents and customers to thrive through the development of new models of service delivery that better meet local needs. In terms of key performance indicators and monitoring, the first step has actually happened by listening to the voice of our customers and setting the baseline. And it's great that we've actually got that starting position to establish where we are now. We will continue to gather data, analysing trends, patterns and areas of improvement, using foresight to improve by making insight-led decisions. Feedback loops will be incorporated within our business processes to make necessary adjustments and improvements. Technology opportunities will actually allow us to monitor customer interactions in real time, allowing for immediate responses to issues. Our Future Council will also have success factors built into the programmes of work that will provide the opportunities to demonstrate an improved customer experience. We will learn from other councils by comparing our performance and consistently monitor all these aspects to ensure continuous improvement. In terms of specific key performance indicators, as I say, we've got the baseline now. We know where we need to start from, and we need to now work to develop towards those and feed those into our Future Council.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor. Just to pick up on the investment and the funding that's available, the paper went through, our Future Council Cabinet paper went through on Tuesday evening, and that sets out some of the investment that we will need to be considering as an organisation into future solutions and technology. Any of those investments will come back through that governance process as appropriate. So we start with this baseline, as Anthony has talked about. We will be designing and developing the model that we'll be moving towards, and then those solutions that we require compared on what we have now. So we want to absolutely make sure that we're using all available technology and solutions that we already have access to. How can we develop those further? And any future investment will be considered under the Our Future Council programme.
Thank you for that. Councillor Brown, you wanted to follow up?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I guess what I'm gleaning from this is that the customer service responsibility sits it's a pan-organisational thing. It isn't something that sits with a budget line, and therefore I think it's more important than the most in terms of making sure it is a priority. How do we make it a priority within the organisation? And the example I would give, and hear me out on this, IKEA start by setting the price of the piece of furniture they're going to build. They then design the piece of furniture around that price point. And I think we should look to do the same with customer service. We should set what the customer service good looks like and then design the service around it. And I think quite often with the budget pressures that we face on an ongoing basis throughout my entire time in local government, and I'm sure everyone's here, we can often leave the customer service part. It comes in later into the conversation rather than right at the beginning. And So at the end, Chair, I would like to actually make a recommendation. A couple of things I think we can do to tilt that balance back. So, for example, the default layout of our agendas includes things like environmental impacts, equality impacts, financial impacts. It doesn't, and therefore it instigates thought processes from people designing policy about what those impacts look like and how it can be done better. We don't have a section put aside for what that would do to affect our customers. The team have added it for this agenda item, which is fantastic because they get it. So that's an example. And the other one is making sure that within the Our Dorset transformational programme that's going on, that actually this is a priority, and making sure that we empower the Cabinet to make customer service a priority. So those are some recommendations I'm happy to make later, but yeah, thank you.
Maybe following on from that, but Councillor, I hope you have your hand up. Did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. Apologies I didn't introduce myself last time I spoke. So I'm Councillor Ryan Hope, Portfolio Holder for Customer Culture and Community Engagement. And I just really want to reassure everyone that customer interaction and service delivery to our customer and our customer front door is at the heart of what the Cabinet decides. It's very much, as I said, which has full Cabinet support embedded into our future council. And it is something that we are thinking about at all times we're setting policy and direction. The other thing is we was sort of challenged to do mystery shoppers. And I think enough of us councillors are using these services daily to understand the frustrations. And I think Anthony has actually identified them during some of his case studies. I explained to him one of the ones I have when applying for a street collection licence. Dorset Council still has 3 different forms depending where you are in the county. You have to print the form, email it, then it comes back to you, and then you have to fill out a separate form for your returns. We're under these sort of customer, this new way of working. This will all be digitally embedded, removing the licensing member, freeing them up to do licensing work. So I really think that, you know, we are informed enough around what our customers are experiencing. We experience them ourselves. And I truly believe that this policy and this way of working will remove so much of those frustrations that our residents and customers see.
Thank you very much for that. Councillor Jesperson next. No? Okay. Councillor Gibson.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Councillor Simon Gibson, representing Verwood Ward. I want to add my thanks before I start to Anthony for the personalised briefing. It's been mentioned by a few councillors, but it's the first time I've ever been offered that. And it was hugely reassuring, especially when the aim of the briefing was to reassure councillors that we understood customer service. So I felt very listened to, which I think starts the whole process off very well. So thank you sincerely. And it's made the debate today much more straightforward, because lots of the questions that weren't really questions, they were sort of half-conceived thoughts, have been worked through before we get to the chamber. So a model, I think, for the future, so well done. I am very much in favour of the report. Exactly as Piers has set out, I think it's something that we really do need to add additional focus to. When we look at our future council, this is the first real in-depth piece of work that I think I now understand about what actually transforming our services is seeking to do, not in a principle, but in terms of what it might start to practically look like for our residents. So well done, and thank you for that. And I've got very few comments beyond what we discussed when we met, Anthony. A couple of the ones that I did have and that we discussed when we met. One was around how you give feedback. So we talked about some of the more day-to-day things that this sort of work will seek to do around, for example, reporting a pothole. The sort of thing, I don't believe that to be a complaint in the first instance. I believe that is somebody who lives in an area that goes past a pothole that says, I'd quite like that pothole fixed. What they're looking for from the council is a straightforward way to do it. Something like that happens when you're already out and about, you're not sat at home. So things like use of smartphone technology to be able to upload a What3 Words or a photograph is very good. And I know some of that technology exists, but what I would like some reassurance on as we start to design this is actually the feedback that comes in afterwards, because actually it's very reassuring to know when that pothole has been filled or when that hedge has been trimmed, because, and it doesn't need to be war and peace, but it does need to be clear when the council has actually done what it said it would do, because I have this suspicion that the council is actually much better at filling these things in than the perception sometimes has of us. So I think part of customer service isn't just receiving an issue, it's actually how you then communicate what's then being done afterwards. And I think some of what's being done here, I think, really sets us on a good path to doing that. So I'm pleased to see it. We also talked about parts of the council that I think do a really good job. So, for example, I think our Adult Services Directorate do a good job in terms of taking a very complex issue, in this case, the opposite of reporting a pothole, and listening to what the customer says, making sure they don't have to tell their story multiple times to different parts of the adult social care service, and then advising them of what additional support is available and they might need. That's a bit of a blueprint for me about what would work well elsewhere. So hopefully we can learn at what we've already been doing really well and just roll it out further. But apart from that, I think this is great work, and I think it's exactly where we should be focusing our time, and I just want to wholeheartedly commend it.
Did you, if you want to comment on any of that?
You, Chair. Thank you, Councillor. Yes, without a question of a doubt, we need to be managing our customer expectations through proactive notifications, but actually making sure that happens by ensuring that we feed that into the design when we're designing the new processes, but also not necessarily the new processes, but listening to our customers and continuously improving. They're telling us this is what they want, so obviously we need to actually respond to that. So yes, these are all things that we're considering as we're moving forward, and making sure that obviously automation technology enhances that experience for our customers, so they can do those things like you've actually mentioned about, you know, using their mobile phone to take a picture of a pothole that instantly just pushes one button, off it goes, and then all of a sudden it picks up who they are and those notifications come through. Yes, thank you.
Councillor Tarr.
Yes. I wanted to second what the last speaker said, compliments to the organisation, but also I'd like to say, looking at publicly funded organisations in Dorset and in Dorchester, the Dorset Council is years ahead in terms of technology and the development of the computer system. When you go to other organisations in this county and see them still trundling around with trailers with boxes of files on them, delivering them to different doors in large buildings, you realise that we're very way ahead of all that. So that's a good thing. And I think the work that was done by Ray Bryan, we can certainly attribute the work that was done on potholes. There are less potholes, I think, in Dorset than anywhere I've been in the last 2 or 3 years. You just notice that the car is less, I don't go in a car often, but it's much better surfacing. And that I think is because everybody knows that the best way of getting rid of them is to report them. And within a very short time, they're done. So that is all the good points. The negative thing is a national matter, and that is the phone service. In a league table of European countries, the only country which is worse than us is Albania, which is some recommendation for the way that our national phone services work. And I think we really ought to put more pressure on the government, as Ray Bryan said previously, to get that sorted. There are people fighting over the A35 to put up aerials all along it as you come into our special landscape. And in the centre of Dorset, you can't get a signal at all. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. It's spot on. Councillor Crabb next.
I'd just like to thank Anthony for the excellent presentation, and thank you meeting me on a one-on-one basis to explain the whole thing. I think that it's absolutely excellent way forward. It's a way to go. I think also it will save the council money. So in the long term, it will have a positive impact on our budget. So that's a really good thing. So thank you very much.
Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Chair, and once again, thank you for the report. One thing I forgot to mention, which I did pick up on, and thank you, Councillor, for mentioning libraries, was the fact that, as you know, in the first 10 years ago, I fought very valiantly to make sure that we got our libraries to stay open, and we saved them. And things that I've just looked online just now, just quickly to pick up. Accessibility to the libraries is a problem, because the fact is we've got to look at the working weeks. Now, for example, I'm just picking out here, Thursday 10 to 5. Well, 75% of our population who work in Dorsetshire cannot access our libraries in those times. So my question to you would be, is accessibility to the library service so that we can actually have that customer interaction out of hours? Because that's the thing on that one there. Because that does not help us. Those hours do not help us, our population. And also accessibility for our population to come into Dorsetshire or wherever across the county to get at libraries to see whether or not there is a good travel system in Wales as well. So that's another thing customer service we need to look at as well, travel accessibility on that score. The one good thing I picked up on, which was fantastic, was the free laptops and the data and the accessibility. That is outstanding, because that means that we as Dorset stand up once again to say we are helping our communities in that score. And I'm just looking also and rolling out this beyond our libraries, beyond our council offices. Have we looked at the businesses? Have we looked at the historic centres, Shire Hall, County Museum? You know, these are point contacts that customers go to for contacts about our town. And they look at the ways of going to say, what can we do while we're here? And they'll go into these places or shops or things like that to say, how can we access this and this and this? And you say, I'll go to the library. But it's shut. But do you know where I'm going with this? That's so therefore we could broaden this quite rapidly across the county and the country, you know, as a flagship to say, we're doing very well, thank you. And the thing is that we can help you. It may return you financially as well. It might be a financial return. But that's a point to say the library hours and things, this need to be looked at for customer contacts. Because non-digital is very big, as we've discovered today, in Dorset. That's my question. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor, for those questions. Happy to pick up a conversation outside about our library strategy and where we're looking to improve extended access. We are actually looking at some pilots with technology for customers to be able to use their libraries outside of hours. And also the telephone lines for Dorset Council are available 24/7. So if somebody has an issue, then they are able to use those telephone lines and our digital services 24/7. And we will look to strengthen how we think about that partnership connection. So in line with our community partnerships priority for the organisation, how can we make sure in the strategy that that's really strengthened so we can see where that big network is and how we're going to work that through town and parish councils, but also voluntary community sector and all of our partners that are local. How can we make sure we've got those connections there? So we will look to strengthen that.
That's fantastic. Great. Yeah. That's fantastic to hear. I like it. I hear it. And the thing is that a lot of the questions also raised about the free this, the accessibility, it's the communication. We've had problems in the past where it's been siloed. And that's what we want to walk away from, is the fact of spreading the information across the people, whatever forms, even chat to chat, neighbour to neighbour, whatever. It's a way of getting this information out across. It's good discussion here today. It's a great discussion here today. But the fact is, outside of this room, how far does it go? And that's my question to say, is everybody hearing this? And that's the biggest thing about customer service, customer communication. We need to get it out there. And that's what I hear. And when I hear it out there, then I know we've done our job. And well done. This is a brilliant day. Thank you.
Thank you very much. But is there anybody else who hasn't spoken yet or wants to add anything? No? Okay. Well, sorry? The paper is we have a recommendation on the paper already, which broadly says that we're looking for comments on the strategy. I can pretty much feel confident in saying that everybody has been very positive about the strategy and wants to move forward in this direction. And we're quite clear to do that. Councillor Brown, you wanted to make a proposal to add on to what we've been discussing, presumably?
Yeah, please, Chair, if that's okay. I wanted two sort of parts is what I was thinking, but I'm obviously willing to collate ideas from around the room. The first is to ask, I guess, or empower the Cabinet to try and make this council a customer-obsessed council, and I think part of that would be adding to our agenda packs an item that directly outlines the impacts this will have on the customer. And I said that's not actually for us, that's for the people writing the policies and agendas to make them specifically think, irrespective of where they are in the organisation, what the service is, what that impact is on the customer. And the second is, I guess, to ask, and again, ask and empower the Cabinet to make customer service transformation a key part of our Future Council programme and give it funding behind it to make it a reality. In politics, don't believe a politician is serious about something until they put some money behind it. That's normally how you tell that we're actually serious about it. So those two things, I would like to, as I said, empower the Cabinet with our backing to take this forward and do what's right by our customers.
Sorry. Can I see all those in favour of supporting the proposal by Councillor Brown? Yeah. Anybody against? No? Good. Well, thank you very much. I think that's a very positive way forward. Councillor Hope, did you want to conclude with any particular comments based on what we've just agreed?
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Chair. I just want to thank your committee for all the thoughts and feedback on this. It's something that I could have taken under executive decision, but I did want to include the wider council. So I'd like to thank you for tabling this on your agenda today and for that feedback. Just one point on those recommendations, which I know you voted on, and I'm happy to take into consideration, is we are committed to this. Our Future Council does have budget line to support this work. And also that we do look at customers when making any policy or decisions under the inclusion impact assessment. So we are doing those pieces of work already. So there's no problem considering those two recommendations when we move this forward.
That's really good. Thank you very much, Councillor Hope. And thank you very much for your presentation today. Very, very positive. Thank you. We owe you a big debt. Thank you. Okay, that's it for item 8. We'll move on to item 9 on Dorset Local Nature Recovery Strategy. Does Councillor Ireland want to say something first, or do Bridget, do you want to say something?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Councillor Nick Ireland, Councillor for Crossways. I'd just like to say this work has predated our declaration of a nature emergency by about a year, I guess, off the top of my head. But just to say, myself and Amy Smith, who's sitting in the chamber here with me, we attended Weymouth College on Tuesday afternoon, basically to sit in a presentation, which is a summary of work that Climate Extinction Rebellion essentially had done with Weymouth College yearly. And it was about nature recovery. And I guess what it demonstrated was that the students of Weymouth College take nature and climate change very, very seriously. It's good to see that generation is on board. And as a council, this paper and what we're going to do through the local nature recovery strategy will help achieve what they think we should be doing. And so I'll hand over to Bridget or Amy, I guess.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ireland. When you're ready.
Hello, I'm Bridget Betts, and I'm the Environment Policy and Partnership Team Manager. And next to me is my colleague Amy Smith, who is the Local Nature Recovery Officer for Dorset Council and BCP Council, so a joint officer. I'm going to provide a presentation. one moment. Sorry about that. So this is, so today I'm going to, just as a quick reminder, and before I provide a whistle-stop tour of the work that's gone on to producing the draft local nature recovery strategy, I just wanted to remind everyone of the recommendation of the report is our formal way to take the draft Dorset Local Nature Recovery Strategy through Dorset Council. As under DEFRA guidance, we are required to seek pre-consultation approval from both supporting authorities, and that is BCP Council and Natural England. And they're allowed 28 days to respond, and that includes yourselves, 28 days to respond, before going out to statutory public consultation. So just a bit of context, I think. What have we got in Dorset? The local nature recovery strategy work has really provided us time to get baselines together and see what we really have got. And the diagram here just shows, actually, you know, we haven't, although we've got some nature, and Dorset is often perceived as nature rich and very green. I think being green, having a lot of green doesn't always mean you've got a lot of nature. It's often, the vast majority, as you can see in this diagram, is land that is farmland, which is arable, or improved grassland, which is often nature poor. It's really important that we protect what we do have, especially for our internationally important heathlands, and that we make more space for nature. And farmers and landowners are absolutely key to this success. But it's also important, I think the local nature recovery strategy pulls out that actually everyone's got a role to play. So this is contained within the strategy and obviously sits across BCP area and Dorset Council area. And this just shows the declines of nature as we see it. So again, it's given us time to look at those and bring those together. So now we know what the picture is, it now gives us an opportunity to reverse that. I've put this up because the geographical area is obviously for BCP Council and for Dorset Council, but here for Dorset Council, we already have a number of plans and declarations that support local nature recovery. And we have to ensure the priorities set out for Dorset Council are contained within the local nature recovery that relates to nature recovery. So implementing the strategy will enable Dorset Council to meet its priorities for nature and the nature emergency that it's declared. So just so you know, in 2023, the UK government tasked each county or combined authority in England with developing a local nature recovery strategy as a requirement of the Environment Act. And we've had to work with statutory guidance to deliver this. Dorset Council are the responsible body for this, and obviously we've worked with our supporting authorities to deliver this. These spatial strategies will provide the framework to drive forward nature recovery, a nature recovery network across England by agreeing local priorities and mapping the locations where activities will most effectively contribute to these goals. And there's 48 LNRSs being developed. They're all at different stages, but most are going through the process that we're going through at the moment. I really hope you've had time to read the strategy. We've had it designed in-house by our fantastic design team, and we've got a really strong shared vision, and that's a shared vision by a huge amount of people. And we've brought that vision to life, and hopefully, I've just put it on the screen, it's not brilliant to see on the screen, but that sort of just provides a really visual summary of what that vision could look like for Dorset, encompassing the urban areas as well as the rural areas. So this provides what the nature recovery strategy is made up of. I'm not going to read it all out, but basically is we have to describe what the habitats and species are, what the pressures are, and what the opportunities are. We've worked with many people to work out our priorities and the different potential activities, and we've also had to work on listing our priority species from long lists to short lists, and we've had different groups set up to do that. I've mentioned it was a spatial strategy, and that means that we've had to produce 3 layers that are statutory, and we've got many extra other layers, and we've got a lot of supporting documents which you've all had access to, but that sort of says how we went about the process. I think really, really importantly, you know, how it's been put together has been obviously with the 2 supporting authorities. We've worked with 76 different organisations who've given over 1,300 of hours free time, and that's over 42 different organisations. We've had 6 different groups, technical groups, we've had a comms group, we've had species group, and so they've all done their different jobs working to the relevant guidance. And we've engaged with over 1,375 people at different workshops and events. And we've been very, very successful with our farmer and our landowner people, not just at some of these events, but visiting their farms, listening, and them hosting different workshops. That's been very powerful. I hope that the language in the strategy comes through as that, because they have written a lot of that, and that's been really important. So they're telling us what they can do. I've just listed here the draft nature recovery priorities. It covers an awful lot of things, but and today the first question was that I answered was all about water quality. So you know the rivers and lakes and wetlands are functioning, but it really spans across a whole lot of priorities that people have already agreed to within all our groups. All of those priorities have an explainer paragraph, so hopefully that makes that really clear to anyone who's reading it, and a list of those potential activities. You know, there are more activities, but they're the sort of key ones that all our groups felt were important, and provides a really good Dorset example of what each of those priorities are. I just thought I'd put one up for you on sustainable farming, because as I said at the start, you know, farming and landowners, it's imperative. If we're going to have true nature recovery in Dorset, it will only be through the goodwill and the change in how people farm. We have many people that are practicing sustainable farming, and it's been really interesting to see and hear that food and nature can sit side by side and work really well, both profitably and for people and for wildlife. And as you can see, when we've done each activity, we've split out who can deliver these different activities, making it easy for people to understand where they have a place to play. And that includes Dorset Council. When you read through some of the priorities, it lists out where public bodies have a role to play. Importantly, we've got the different maps. So the 3 layers that are statutory. There's the nature layer, which is all of national importance, and I'll show you that in a minute. But more importantly is the high opportunity nature areas. They are hugely, hugely important. That's where we think we can help create nature. And again, that's been consulted on by all our different representatives, including farmers, nature conservation people, and other regulatory bodies. And we've got a different layer called the potential activities map, and that provides details of what the best measure or the different activities you could do in that area to enable that. We've also, as part of the process, produced so many different layers of information for maps, and they're all going to be available for the public and for people to help really people plan their management plans or their work and work towards nature recovery. And all that will be accessed via Dorset Explorer. And again, our GIS department in Dorset Council has been fundamentally instrumental in that. So this is a picture of the national importance areas. So that shows SSSIs, SPAs, all those places that are already protected for nature. And this map here takes those away because they're already protection for nature. But then this layer is made up of a whole load, 5 different areas. So firstly, we asked the farmers and landowners if they would like to put forward their land to do something for nature. We didn't tell them what they had to do. That is entirely up to them, but this map will help guide them. And we were so pleased that 93 farmers and landowners submitted their land to be on this map. That shows that currently there's 93 farmers and landowners willing to do something for nature. We also, this map is also made up of a lot of modelling opportunities to expand and connect the largest areas of semi-natural habitat, so that's wetland, heathland, grassland, woodland, rivers and coastal habitats in Dorset. And then it's also got modelling of opportunities to deliver the wider environmental benefits through habitat creation or enhancements such as flooding, air and water quality benefits. So that's all contained with that. We also had some modelling done on whether habitat creation or enhancement could help address inequalities of people's access to nature. But remembering this local nature recovery strategy, its primary purpose is about nature recovery and not about people accessing nature. And then finally, this map is made up of locations where targeted action is required for specific species on the priority list, and also cuts out the highest grade agricultural land. And that's important because that remains for food. So that's the map. It's interactive. Obviously, I've just got a slide of it, and you were sent a video that I hope you watched and saw how the maps worked. This shows the timeline, and as you can see, it started in July. It's been a long journey, a great journey. There's been so many people involved, so many people working on it. It's been a massive learning curve, and we've taken on board the language and all the different practices people are doing to deliver nature. We have also, along the way, because everybody wanted to do, is set up the Nature Recovery Dorset Network. So that's something that Dorset has done specifically. It's not a requirement by the government, but it's something everybody wanted collectively to do. And that's about where we can celebrate it, and where, whether you're a landowner, whether you're a member of the public, a school, we can come together. This will be mapped, so we can see where people are doing different things, but they also get resources to help them. And, you know, there's little plaques for farmers to put up to say, I'm part of this movement and doing my bit. Oh, sorry. So today, I'm just looking for, well, we're just looking for approval for the 28-day internal consultation across Dorset Council, yourselves, and externally with our supporting authorities, BCP Council and Natural England. And after any comments received and anything needs to be rectified, go out to a 12-week period of statutory public consultation, likely and hopefully April this year. We are in the process of designing the web pages, so the strategy will be taken into a web page, so that'll be a lot easier for people to understand. And we're meeting with the diversity and inclusion people so that is all accessible, as well as we would be providing a whole host of face-to-face events. Taking on the points raised earlier, we're really, really happy in the next 28 days to come and speak individually to you, to go through any points and to take on your feedback if you would find that helpful. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I think when I first saw the interactive maps and showed me how it works, it's very, very impressive amount of information that's available, and also everyone's enthusiasm to actually really get involved in this project and make it apply to the whole of Dorset. Really, really impressed. Thank you. Anybody who's not a member of the committee? Yes, Councillor Bryan.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I've had the pleasure of working with this officer over the last few years, so I'm pretty close to what she thinks. I just need to get something clear in my mind at the moment. I've asked this question several times. What's the difference between a nature emergency and an ecological emergency? Because so many of them seem to fit so close together. I do think it's important that we don't confuse the residents, so we need to make sure that we have a clear defining line between the two. I'm sure they will work together, and that's very important. The way we deal with comms is going to be absolutely essential in getting the residents' support. And as we go to the consultation, I think the most important part of the consultation will be the layout of information before we start asking the questions, because otherwise we are going to totally confuse our residents. And I'd like to raise two little points, if I may. One is the bit that Bridget mentioned over the farmers. I had the pleasure of working with the farmers on the FIPL, which is Farming in Protected Landscapes, which now Councillor Ireland looks after. Some great ideas come from them, and they really do want to work closely with us. And again, I think it's important that that is continued. I'm just going to raise one other point, if I may, Chairman, and that's that Bridget and I had the pleasure of working together, dismantling several hundred or thousand portable barbecues a few years ago now. I can remember us getting pretty sooty, but this is all part of why we need to protect our nature, because fire is the biggest hazard that our nature faces. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Did you want to follow up on any of those points?
So firstly, on the ecology and nature emergency, just from our perspective, they are the same thing. I mean, I think ecology is often seen by the public and many others as really technical. And there's 6 ecologists under me, and I think if you use that term, people think, well, we'll just leave it to the experts. So the terminology has changed and across government, actually. So, for us, that it means the same thing. So we have used nature rather than species, or, a lot of those words. It's just made it a lot simpler. Your comment on comms, I would completely agree. It's really been interesting. We sit on the Southwest group for the LNRS, and some are being driven by ecologists, and some are driven by I don't know, people more like me who I'm not an ecologist, but I am all about partnership working and facilitator. And it's really interesting to see the difference. We specifically, from day one, set up a comms group. And, we've got Dorset Council comms, we've got BCP comms, we've got the wildlife comms people, we have the LEP comms person. So we have made that really important, that language to the different audiences is delivered really well. So, and that is continuing. So it is now the comms group rather than the steering group to look at what the consultation is going to be like. So I hope that provides the reassurance we're doing that in the correct way. And the layout on the of how we deliver that strategy, again, that group is looking at that, and we're using our web team to ensure that is simple, easy, and the questions they get but will be useful to us, really, going forward. And I would agree, the FIPL project is absolutely excellent. When we fed back to DEFRA, because we have interviews with DEFRA, we have always said we would like to continue FIPL and we would like to extend FIPL because obviously it's only in the National Landscapes area. So, we are in talks with them about how we could possibly do that. Whether that funding comes, I'm not sure, but it's certainly, we have always said any kind of process like any kind of project like FIPL, we would like to see continue and be expanded.
Anybody else who's not a member of the committee? Yes. Please, go ahead.
Thanks, Belinda Borden, Lyme Regis and Chalmers. Following on from that, all the engagement I've done locally on sort of climate action, nature recovery, it's very much that unfortunately climate action has been politicised, and it kind of acts as a turn-off somehow, whereas if you're describing nature, that's something that is a real it's sort of a leveller. Everybody agrees with it. It's the same with cleaning up the rivers and beaches. So we've sort of shifted priorities slightly, because obviously you can only do what you can do locally based on the capacity that you've got for volunteer groups and the things that really interest and engage people. And nature's one of them, particularly with the younger generation. And cleaning rivers and beaches obviously is something like that. So I definitely kind of agree with that approach. I would also like to make a plea that the Great Big Dorset Hedge Project, which is part of the Dorset Climate Action Network's range of projects, which now has over 120 volunteers engaged, helping farmers to survey hedgerows. And that enables the farmers to claim FIPL funding to restore the hedgerows. And then the secondary stages of the project would be for the volunteers to go back and help plant the hedges. So it's kind of a win-win for everyone, but we would love to kind of be involved in that. And similarly with our local river groups who are achieving astonishing success locally. I can't say we're influencing the sort of higher up at the water companies, but locally the exchange of information and the mutual support that's going on and resolving problems, pipe by pipe, is really encouraging. But yes, we can help you. Oh, and also locally we have a lady who's set up a charity. She's doing a lot of work like this in schools, and she's very, very good at publicity, and she's been winning national awards within a year of going into schools. She provides curriculum resources and activities based on nature restoration in particular. So yeah, lots of support offered from us.
Jolly good, thank you. Bridget, do you want to comment on that?
Thank you. With regard to the Big Great Hedge Project, I would agree, a fantastic project. But just to reassure you, it's mentioned in the strategy. They've been part of our, they've been part of the consultation. Preparing that strategy. They've spoken at our conference and events that we've had to over 150 people. So, and I think there's been connections made because of that. And also, Amy's been out with them to see exactly how it gets done, and so that we can promote that. So that will be on as we move forward into implementation. And the website, those sorts of programs will be available and act as a sort of signposting area. You'd mentioned you can help us. This isn't my strategy. This isn't Dorset Council's strategy. This is Dorset's strategy, and that's really important. So, and we just need to make sure that people see it. You're not helping me. You're helping Dorset to recover nature. So, I just wanted to say that, because quite often when you bring a strategy, they think you own it, and actually it's beyond Dorset Council. It's for the people of Dorset.
Thank you very much. Councillor David Taylor, I think you had to...
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the report. It's interesting to hear that we're actually on my wavelength here regarding nature and stuff, because I've been quite advocate on this. Things I'm noticing is the fact it's like with this particular presentation today, you've got lots of big boys fighting you here for bits and pieces which we have to be aware of. You're aware of planning, housing, etc., pollution, nitrate neutrality, it goes on and on. But the thing is that you've identified it as a Dorset thing, a Dorset object to be held by Dorset residents. I'm worried about the teeth of it to see whether or not you can actually go forward, because you've also got the Natural England. And these are people which we need to work hand in hand to making sure that we do go forward in an ecological way. Also, the fact is like we've got funding. Now, this funding issue is where is this money coming from? Who is supporting this and how is it coming through? And how is it proportionally going to be represented across Dorset? Because we've got Dorset, we've got BCP. BCP has more houses than we've got, and we're a rural community in Dorset. So there's more possibilities of looking at. My question is to say, how has it been spread proportionally across Dorset to represent Dorset wildlife and also the fact that the people of Dorset? Finally, on that score, I was looking at the planning aspect. Planning is the big one here because we've got to work at the other boys, girls, sorry, I'm not being sexist here, please. Then you look at the planning and other bodies which are fighting for land to develop and build on. So there's lots of partners here which we have to literally physically force to the table to make them understand that it's working against nature. And the final one I bring in is pollution. I've had a massive battle last 2023-24 with particular fields in Charminster where the land was flooding with nitrates straight into the River Severn, was killing it, sending it down to Poole Harbour, and it was damaging the harbour, which we know about at the moment. So therefore, there's a possibility of working with the farmers and the landowners who generally don't farm, I must say. They just have the land and nutrients and chemicals flow off it. So therefore, it's a pan-Dorset thing we're looking at. My question is, how are we engaging with all of the relevant bodies across, and how are we making sure we stand up and have teeth in this for Dorset people and its residents? That's my question.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Bridget.
I will try and answer that. So firstly, how do we engage? Well, just for some assurance, we've had the planning from both BCP Council and from Dorset Council on the steering group from day one. So they are part of the process, and they have fed in to the development of that strategy and how it can be used, working with both local plans. And that is, we're just in the process of producing some guidance for planners, for developers around that. Key really for nature recovery is the biodiversity net gain and that nutrient neutrality that you talked about. So we are completely aware of that. But using the local, the idea is to use the local nature recovery strategy maps really as a guide as to where and what could be put on that land. So help developers do that. So not to stop development, but to really make sure the right nature is in the right place and they can work for that. So that's what, so they have been part of the process from day one. We also, for nutrients, we have another team under me, under myself, deal with nutrients, specific nitrate pollution. We currently have a call for land. So if you're aware of any land that you think we could engage with and talk to farmers, we get calls in all the time. They're investigated, and obviously we work with Natural England on that. But there is a specific project area. If you want to come and chat about that, that'd be good. I think we're arranging a seminar for the planners, actually, because unfortunately got cancelled just before Christmas, but that is really important. The money, what you asked where that sort of came from, well, all of this currently has been funded by government. So we've received, I can't remember exactly how much, a couple of 100,000, I think, and that's paid for the mapping, for the officers' times, etc. So, and we are all in talks with them at the moment, so hoping they'll provide some funding for the implementation, because, you have to bear in mind, we've built up such trust and partnerships now. It would be a foolish mistake for government to just put a halt on that. So hoping to hear, hopefully fairly soon. And you talked about a bit the spread across BCP Council and Dorset Council. We work with Martin Whitchurch, my sort of opposite in BC Council, and again, there are different pressures, but they are all about urban greening, how they can do more. So taking it very, very seriously rather than maybe saying, well, you do it in Dorset Council area. It is a shared responsibility, and they sit equally, we sit shoulder to shoulder on that.
That's a great description, but I mean, things that's you've just mentioned the fact about the funding of a couple of £100,000. That is nothing, absolutely nothing. You know, we are the county of Dorset, which people from all over the world come to see. Jurassic Coastline, UNESCO, you know, we are world status here. And things I don't quite get the fact is that the importance of Dorset, BCP as well, I will say, is the fact it should be involved with the fact that we do stand up because people come to us for our beauty, our nature, and our resources. So my question is back at that to say the funding is dreadful. So why aren't we not fighting for more money for what we stand up for our beautiful county? That's my question.
I probably should have been a bit clearer. So that money paid for the developing of the strategy. But there is funding out there for biodiversity net gain, for nutrient neutrality. There's a lot of money. We've got a £4.6 million grant. So that is accessible to people, or to certainly farmers, landowners, if it meets the criteria. We are really hoping there is, well, we've got a couple of large landscape nature recovery projects that are due to go to, they're in development and they're due to be passed, which would mean actually that would bring in, that provides that money from both public and government. And then I think there's going to be around 3 of that. And again, there's 2 areas in Dorset that are looking to Portland and the Purbeck to submit to that bid. So, and recently I applied for the Nature Towns and Cities bid. So there's offers of time going into looking at that, as well as supporting others who want to do that. But we take that quite seriously. And that's from a whole range of different funding pots. So there's not one big funding pot for that. But in order to drive that, we want the government to pay for the officer time to enable us to keep these officers in place.
Thank you. Councillor Biggs, next.
Yes, thank you. Richard Biggs, Property Assets and Economic Growth Cabinet Member. I'm very interested in listening to this and to the strategy, and perhaps to pick up Councillor Taylor's point to answer in another way. We are also obviously a landowner, an owner of many county farms, which I know David sits on and others. And we also own lots of green space, which we do manage, obviously, very well for nature in some ways. But the farming is obviously always that balance between production and whether we can coincide, as has been said. And I think there's some real opportunities going forward. So I think there's a chance, you know, we can actually do a lot ourselves within our own land, and we don't have to be in this conflict with farmers. And I think there's some real opportunities on our own estate to set the example what could be done. So I think it's really good to remind everyone and to be involved and to take part and listen to the Farming Executive Advisory Panel, because I think there's a lot of good things that will be happening in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that information. Really, very helpful. Councillor Jesperson next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councillor Sherry Jesperson, Hillports and Upper Tarrants Ward, and the Opposition Cabinet Member for the Environment and Climate Change. I very much like to welcome this report. It's a deep and rich piece of work. Thank you very much indeed. It has its origins, doesn't it, way back in 2023, and I know Ray was very much involved in the beginnings of this. What I think we have here is a genuinely co-produced cross-party piece of work, and it's all the better for it. And you mentioned that you were a facilitator. You are indeed, and you can see the work of a facilitator in this. One of the things that you said in your introduction and in the report, you say that Dorset is nature depleted. And of course, you're absolutely right. But I'd rather think that focus on the fact that Dorset and BCP are actually nature richer than almost any other county in the south, certainly in the southeast of England. and we have more than our fair share of opportunities and of nature-rich areas. And with that comes tremendous opportunities for nature regeneration, but also big responsibilities. And I think anybody who watched the Winter Watch from Arn in recent weeks, I mean, wasn't that utterly, utterly thrilling to see all, in the middle of winter, all that fabulous bird life just here on our doorstep, and it was really made one very proud. So I think that I would turn it round slightly in our minds, not that we are nature depleted, but the opportunities for nature enrichment in Dorset are absolutely enormous, and the responsibilities as well. Mr. Chairman, I'm broadly happy with what's in the report, except for one small point that I'd like to come to at the end. But I'd like to raise a couple of areas where I'd like to see more. So it's not what's in there; it's what's not in there. The first of these areas is on page 82 in the strategy. There's this little throwaway sentence where you say, "By itself, a strategy achieves nothing if it doesn't lead to effective action," and that focused my mind, because what you've got here is a long and a rich list of potential activities so that the people could do. There's lots on what we can do, and that's extremely encouraging. What we're a bit lighter on is how we're going to make that happen. How we're going to be, because of course, farmers are very hard pressed. Landowners are increasingly very remote. Gardens are getting smaller. We've talked about it in this chamber many times, the pressure on volunteers all across the board. Council governments are stretched and under pressure. So we've got a lovely list of things that people can do, and some people who can do it. And I wonder where we will be in a few years' time if we find that it actually hasn't been done. So it's not a kind of question that you can probably answer. I think what I would like to I mean, we've described some laudable projects in this thing of what farmers and so on are doing, and I know some of them because one or two of them are actually in my ward, and that's excellent. So probably what I would like to explore is whether or not when this report comes back to this committee, as it is programmed to do, we could have a little more, we could spend some time looking at how we make it happen, not just what could happen. That's my first point, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for the question. We talked about nature. I'll just do the nature depleted first. There is I've heard it actually at one of the, I don't know whether it was committee meeting or cabinet, that I heard that someone announced that nature's great here. We don't need to do anything, and so we didn't really. You know, you're right. It is better than most, or if not all, other counties. We're not disputing that. But that was having a negative effect, saying that, really. So that's why we talk about, actually, it may look green, but it's not. Green doesn't mean nature. So just, we've hopefully haven't put too much on the nature depleted. How we can make it happen, that really is the next stage, and that will be Amy's job about implementation. So it's retaining all those great connections we've already got, certainly with the NFU and the CLA and the different farmers. We've set up a farm cluster group, and that's been really important because that involves an awful lot of farmers. And also, I think we had a meeting with the NFU and a few others. I think Councillor Nick Island was there as well, and they're talking about potentially wanting a rural forum set up. And we thought, actually, we could, because we will disband the groups because we don't need them anymore, and there'd be different people joining the groups, but maybe a rural forum would be a really, really good way to do that. And using the Nature Recovery Dorset brand, which everyone has contributed to, as a way of sort of bringing everybody together to deliver that. So, And the monitor for Dorset Council, we've already committed through our county farms to have 70% of them in doing sustainable farming. You know, that's really important, and that isn't for us to tell them well, it is for Dorset Council to tell them that that's what we should do. They should be exemplars, really. So producing food while doing something for nature. And there's a whole in the sustainable farming section, and that's what they wanted it to be called. You know, there's regenerative farming, agro farming, organic farming. There's a whole host, but to do something for nature, and so hopefully that is something already in progress and been put in the council plan.
Okay, sorry, you had a second point as well.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much. That's encouraging. As I say, if we could just in this committee keep our eye on this, because there is a danger that, not a danger, but that it's a possibility that these things lose momentum, don't they? And we really don't want that to have happened. And I absolutely take your point about Dorset Farms, because I'm on the farm panel. So thank you for that. The second point I wanted to raise, and it's been raised briefly, but I want to come back to it, is the question of it's kind of, for me, in this report, it was the elephant in the room, and that's the question of development. The relationship between the ambitions in this nature recovery strategy and the requirement to build so many thousands of new homes and all the infrastructure that comes with that. It seems to me, if we're honest, that development is likely to be the greatest threat to our nature in the coming decade. You know, it's not farming, it's not gardeners using glyphosate, it's going to be development, which is the greatest threat. And I don't see enough in this strategy about that relationship. You give us there the supporting document about how the local plan and the local nature recovery strategy works together, but actually that's very high level and it's pretty bland and it's lifted straight out of the NPPF. So it was good as far as it went, but it didn't actually address any of the real questions. We're offered biodiversity net gain units and off-site mitigation as the way in which we're going to be making development acceptable. The point about those facilities, they make development acceptable in planning terms. In other words, in terms of planning law, they make development acceptable. They don't make development acceptable in terms of nature recovery. It's a different picture. And if I may just take a moment of everyone's time to give you briefly give you a case study from in my ward, a very important development in Bryanston. It's in a habitat that is essential for the cockchafer beetle. Now, the cockchafer beetle is the main foodstuff for the long-haired bat. Now that we have a colony of those bats, a nationally important, actually it may even be an internationally important colony of those bats in Bryanston. They've had their own television programme. That's how important they are, these bats, right? And we have built houses in the place where the food for these bats go. Now, to be fair to Taylor Wimpey, who are the developer that are doing this, they're doing everything that they're required to do by the planning mitigation. They're building a habitat somewhere else. Nature England, however, tells us that it will be 10 years before that habitat, that's the mitigation habitat, comes near to being a replacement for the habitat that we have destroyed. Now, in that 10 years, I'm not optimistic about the future of that nationally, possibly internationally important colony of bats. And this is what I'm talking about. So the idea of mitigation and biodiversity net gains, we mustn't be seduced into thinking that off-site mitigation removes the harm. It may remove the harm in planning terms, but it doesn't remove the harm for nature, that nature is still harmed. you may tell me that this is the price we have to pay for delivering the new homes, and I get that as well as anybody else does, but we're not, in the rest of this document, we're not throwing up our hands and say, well, that's the price we have to pay. You know, dirty rivers is the price we have to pay for the fact that the water companies won't clear up. So I don't want us to say with development, well, that's the price we have to pay to get the new homes. I want both. And so I would like to see this addressed in this report, or in a future version of this report, much more. I wrote down honestly, perhaps I mean more robustly, into the relationship between our ambition for nature recovery and the demands and the harm that's going to be done to our nature by the equally urgent need to build houses. And I don't know how we reconcile that, but if we don't, the harm that will have been done to our habitat by the building of these houses, once it's gone, it's gone. We're never getting those bats back. So that's the big, for me, the big elephant in the room, as I say, with this report. I just don't see enough about addressing that which I think is the most significant threat that nature is going to be facing in the coming decade. Thank you.
Thank you. And the whole point of having these meetings is precisely to address the issues that you're talking about. And I think it's a key part of when we're going forward is to how to balance those issues. Yeah, I mean, it's a huge task and not very easy to do it with. But yeah, it's clear that that's the direction we want to go in as a council. Yeah. Bridget, did you want to add anything to that?
Sorry, I can just say a few words briefly, because obviously I'm not a planner. But I would say that Natural England would, as well as many others, would disagree with that development is the main threat to nature recovery. They would say it's because so much land is farming and landowners with improved grassland. That is probably the biggest threat. But we are completely, we're really completely aware about development as well. And I guess because BNG, biodiversity net gain, so whatever development you've got, you have to give 10% more. That is development's way of adding to nature. You know, that is something that we're governed by, and that we have officers in-house that are looking at every planning application relating to that and putting forward that mitigation that you talk about. I can't comment on the case that you've got, because obviously I didn't look at that. But that will have gone through a process to ensure that if they're internationally, and certainly as bats, that there is strong mitigation for that. But happy to take that outside of this meeting. Yeah, so yeah, I think that's all I can comment on. We can take that on board. We are developing something for the planners and the developers to address some of those things you're talking about. And I think we just need to work with the developers on, actually, you just need to design it differently, because a lot of the designs are done, you know, I've got to deliver biodiversity net gain, where could that be? But actually, hopefully the maps will provide actually now the ways we can connect those habitats and to stop that happening and allow developers to design things differently as opposed to just doing what they've done previously. So that's the link, I think, that needs to happen. And if that's not clear, then we need to put that in.
That's very helpful, thank you. I mean, I just have to say about biodiversity net gain and off-site mitigation, the point we have to understand is that so we do harm in my ward in the development north of Pimpern, and then they buy their credits. They buy their credits, and then in due course, some good stuff is done, say, at Luscombe Farm. So you may then say, overall, it's cost neutral in planning terms. It's not cost neutral in nature terms, because what we've put in place, we've made Luscombe Park, which was already nature rich, nature richer, but the space that was nature rich before is now gone. That's what I'm saying, that there's a deeper point here, and I think I've probably said enough about what planning law offers us in terms of off-site mitigation and biodiversity unit credits, which is actually seducing us into thinking it's all right, and actually it's really not. But I'll leave it at that, because I think I've made my point. But I would like to know that we're going to come back to the whole question of development and the. I take your point about it might not be the biggest threat. I just feel personally it's a very, very big threat for Dorset, because we have so much precious land and we have such a high demand for houses. That was all I meant by that. So I'll leave it at that. While I have the microphone, there is one very small further point I'd like to make, very small, and it is a really small. Yeah, I've got one very small point to make, if I may, and it's an important one. On page 50, you make a reference in passing in a list of other things to reducing the use of prescription medication because it goes into the waterway. I'm just really uncomfortable about that, given that what we know about the anxiety that climate change causes to people, especially young people and young people's mental health issues. We're saying, it sounds like an invitation to people who are already anxious to say, oh, you really shouldn't be taking your prescription medication because it's making climate change. But I know that's not what you meant. I just don't think that should be in there. Sorry?
Sorry, I'm conscious of the amount of time we're spending on this item, and your short points are turning into very long points. And I'm sure you can have a discussion outside of this meeting, but I don't think we can actually do any more, particularly on specific issues at this time. I also would like to be able to not repeat anything that's already been said and keep it short, because we are running very tight on time. Councillor Northam next, please.
Thank you, Chair. I welcome this nature recovery strategy coming forward. The government's wanted this a long while, and it's taken us a while to get there, so I'm pleased that we're finally getting there. I'm representing the Weymouth ward of Upwey and Broadway, but I'm also declare the interest that I'm the chair of the Neighbourhood Plan Steering Group. Our neighbourhood plan is out for consultation at the moment. It's for the 53,000 people in Weymouth. Weymouth is regarded as an urban area. It is the biggest urban area in Dorset Council area, but it also has within it the RSPB reserve at Radipole, which is within the heart of the town. It also has the Lodmore RSPB. It has a number of triple SI sites within it. And what worries me and worries the steering group that we're producing the neighbourhood plan is that we've sought to provide the necessary homes for local people and also protect those areas which need protecting. So we've gone beyond what's in the West Dorset local plan into specific activities around protecting nature, as well as allocating sites. And in allocating sites, we've sought from developers commitments to offset. At the moment, we've got 425 homes being proposed, and the amount of land, twice that amount of land, is being offset to go to public ownership or Lawton Valley Nature Reserve. And I would love for that land, which goes into that, to then be the beneficiary of local nature recovery. But I met with Bridget last year, and it seems that it's not a priority area. And what I'm really concerned about is we're making the sacrifice in order to have the homes. Out of area nature compensation doesn't help the people of Weymouth. So I'm really anxious follow up your recommendation and have a discussion, perhaps with the steering group members as well, in this next consultation period, about how we can address tying what could be a very powerful neighbourhood plan in with the local nature recovery strategy. I really commend the work that's been done at Luscombe Bottom, just to drop a bottom in, and I really commend it, but it's a long way from most residents in Weymouth who are more concerned about the immediate. And so I'd really welcome that opportunity. I've looked in the strategy and I couldn't access the maps, so I pinged Bridget an email saying, how do I get to look at the maps? Because I can't find them on Dorset Recovery. And the specifics of what's being proposed, if it doesn't feature sites in Weymouth, then nothing's going to happen in Weymouth. And I think Weymouth's got a real opportunity to balance this development with this protection. And so I'd ask a specific question of, beyond the glib phrase about urban and coastal, what is being planned for Weymouth? And you'll also be aware that, picking up comments over here, that the Riverway floods and the Riverway water runs into Weymouth Beach, and Weymouth Beach has lost its Blue Flag Award. Why? It's nothing to do with housing. Well, it's slightly to do with housing development, but principally it's to do with runoff from the agricultural. So I'd really ask, what specifically in Weymouth, and can we make an arrangement to meet to talk about how we tie your comments on the neighbourhood plan, which will be forthcoming and welcome, with our comments on the nature recovery. Thank you.
Thanks for that. Just in response to a couple of those things, yes, definitely can meet, and we can share the link to the maps, which we thought you'll have to gain access. There's a bit of a process. They will be available when the public consultation comes out, but we just don't want to make them publicly available at the moment because we're ruled by the guidance of DEFRA before we go to public consultation. So then you can look at the maps at your leisure, and then you can come to us with any comments. But there is areas in Weymouth that you can see that are our priority. I just wanted to touch on the Weymouth losing their the water quality and going from excellent to good, which is not good news because that affects the Blue Flag. There's a couple of officers in Dorset Council, and I've pulled a group together with Environment Agency, Wessex Water, Weymouth Town Council. So we have met recently. That the outcome is that downgrade has come from a lot of things, not from one single source. So, and we're in the process of putting a plan together to ensure that water quality for this year goes back up to being excellent. So it's a multi-sort of agency little group, and that is really important.
Thank you. Go on very quickly.
Yeah, I recognise it's multi-agency in that, we've been looking at the water bubbling up out of the sewage, the 1930s sewage system. I've had complaints from my residents. We've talked about it as a steering group. We've met with Wessex Water. There's so many people who have a hand on it and nobody prepared to grab it. So I'm really welcome that combined initiative. Thank you.
Online, I believe Councillor Shane Bartlett wishes to add something.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Councillor Shane Bartlett, Ward Member for Wimborne Minster and Cabinet Member for Planning and Emergency Planning. And the local recovery strategy, nature recovery strategy, crosses over into my responsibilities and portfolio in part. And I was just picking up on Councillor Jesperson's comments. The problem is that over successive developments have insisted that the developer uses best use of land, maximises that potential of that development land. And so we've had quite a high density of housing that's been delivered on those development sites over the last few decades now. Government, as you know, have changed the goalposts now. They're turning planning on its head at the moment. The officers are still trying to get to grips with what the government is requesting. We still don't have all the information even to bring forward the local plan and the changes that the government are making. So in terms of
that piece going forward, there's going to need to be a re-education with developers when we get into the room to have those conversations with them, with the way things are changing. I'm happy to pick up that conversation outside the room with Councillor Jesperson. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bartlett. I'm very conscious of the time. We are pressed now, so I'd like to move on, actually, if that's all right. You had something? Okay, Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of observations. So it looks like this strategy is going to be delivered predominantly through things like biodiversity net gain and sort of grants and those kind of joint projects. I don't have no problem with us working in partnership with landowners, farmers, the stewards of our countryside to deliver that, because ultimately then we are using the carrot and not the stick. I must admit, I am concerned when Natural England's name gets mentioned in anything. They are an unelected quango with a untapped amount of power, particularly over our planning system. And I actually disagree quite strongly with Sherry. I think actually their power is way too great. I think they put way too much in the way of us being able to deliver any of the sort of things that our community are looking for. You know, we look at the national news, £100 million for a bat shed over HS2. Turns out it doesn't work. I've got a development in my ward for 16 affordable homes, 100% affordable development, currently being held up as they look for newts. The only body of water on that site is a car park that floods. You know, we've got car parking spaces that are being charged at thousands and thousands of pounds for biodiversity payoffs. And there is no oversight of this. The system doesn't work. And I am really concerned if we are going to give more power and more backing to that system that is standing in the way of us delivering infrastructure and delivering homes for our young people. We wonder why young people can't get on the housing ladder. It's because we can't build anything. There are hundreds of thousands of homes with planning permission across this country being held up by Natural England. Sorry, I'm getting upset because actually I want to achieve the things that are in this document. I'm a rural boy. I get confused by streetlights. I don't understand their purpose. I love nothing more than taking the dogs for a walk in our beautiful countryside. And I want to see nature flourish and thrive. But I just don't believe the mechanisms that we're looking to use, particularly biodiversity net gain through the planning system, are going to work alongside our other priorities. I'm also concerned about what I would feel more of a feeling from the presentation today. There seems to be an atmosphere of anti-farmer around this sort of proposal that I felt from today, and that really concerns me because farmers are the solution, and it's about we need to empower them. You know, things like reducing the use of antibiotics for veterinary purposes. Well, come on, the farmers aren't paying. They're not using the antibiotics for the fun of it. It costs them money. They're doing it because that's what's right for their livestock in front of them in that moment. You know, and I'm just concerned that the intentions are good, but the delivery isn't going to meet and be balanced against our other priorities. So those are my concerns and observations, Chair.
I do understand what you're saying, but I think you're wholly wrong, and I think your fears are a bit too dramatic, really, about the situation. I mean, the point of what we're doing today is to discuss a way forward in terms of consulting people. If the concerns are as you fear they are, the people will feel free to make those comments at that time. But I don't think that you're adding anything positive to what we're actually discussing today. Go on. Yes.
So someone working hard, struggling to get on the property ladder, do we genuinely think in their free time they're going on the council's website looking for consultation opportunities?
I think you're making this into a far more dramatic situation than it needs to be. And I'm a bit surprised at the tone. Right from the start, you said you detected there were certain tones in the presentation, but I don't think they were there. They just don't exist. Sorry, Councillor Gibson.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I wasn't actually going to speak about this because I didn't particularly want to come across especially negative, because broadly I'm in favour of what's in the plan. I'm broadly in favour of trying to make sure we protect nature. I must admit, your comments make me want to speak in favour of what Councillor Brown has said. I'm not really sure it's needed from the chair to say whether someone's being dramatic enough or not. That's their opinion. He's a member of this committee. He hasn't exactly taken up a lot of time today, and I think he's hugely entitled to say what he said, and I want to back it, because all of this is a trade-off. What we've got in front of us is not objectionable. I actually like a lot of it. I too have concerns about biodiversity net gain, not so much on our larger schemes, but actually on our smaller schemes, because it's yet another cost on the price of development, which ultimately feeds its way into the cost of housing. But let's not kid ourselves too. We've got another paper that's coming in a minute that I'm going to say a similar thing about. Everything is an opportunity cost. Everything is set against something else that we do or don't do because of the resource limitations we've got. And I think it's perfectly valid what he said there, and I don't think he should be put to shame for saying it.
Well, thank you for your comments. Councillor Tarr was next.
I just want to switch to a completely different topic, really. The largest land use in Dorset is obviously farming. And I've spent most of my career working with farmers and landowners in Dorset to establish the Heritage Coast, which is now the Triassic Coast, and to the Coast Path, which brings millions into the county. These nature reserves in Weymouth are major income earners for Weymouth. People all think that people go to Weymouth to sit on the beach. Well, how often can you do that? You can't even swim there. It is a major attraction. People come here all year round, Christmas, Easter, in between times. They are coming to Weymouth and other parts of Dorset. They're coming to Brownsea Island. They're coming to the nature reserves in Purbeck. It is a major income earner for Dorset, and we should be looking at nature as something which people can enjoy. The current access to most of the sites, with Brownsea, you have to take a boat there. In Weymouth, you can stay in a hotel and walk to the reserves. But most of the other reserves, you have to take a car to. And that is really bad for nature. It's bad for all of us. It's bad for our health. So I would like to suggest that there is an active travel section in this report which shows how you get to these reserves and how you can get to them without cars and other vehicles to bring you to them. So I think that's the main point I want to make, that our income in Dorset is massively affected by tourism. Nature is a major part of that. It is an economic factor which we can take advantage of. And I think Councillor Jesperson's speech should be put on YouTube as a special feature to go along with the BBC programmes on the Arm Reserves.
Thank you for that, Councillor Tarr. Bridget, did you want to make a comment on that?
Yeah, if I could just make a couple of quick comments on that. The active travel, they have their own plans. That's not something we were tasked to do or we would want to do in this strategy. So there are other plans to do that. I really wanted to address the comment on farmers. I mean, the reason I put the example of farmers up is because we've had so much interaction with farmers. They have guided the language, what they want. Those activities are what they have suggested. They're not what, because I wouldn't know that, or Amy. And they have been integral from the start, both through NFU, CLA, the Farm Cluster Group, individual farmers being part of it. So if that came across as that they weren't, then I apologise for that. But they are absolutely at the core and have been from the start for that, because this nature recovery will only work with the will and the want of that. And the transition to sustainable farming is happening in Dorset. So it's about farming, it's about food and nature rather than just nature.
Right, thank you. I think we've given this a fair amount of airing now. We are being asked to pass a recommendation to go ahead with consultation and then for a report to come back to us later in the year. based on what the public tell us, what the farmers and everybody else feel free to tell us about views as well. So are we all happy with that? Well, broadly, or content with doing that? Yes. Sorry? I'm sure we can interact with farmers. I'm sure one of the things that Bridget said is that they are planning meetings with people and to talk about interested groups throughout the county. So maybe part of that, something like that. Okay, is everybody happy with that? Yeah, okay. Well, that's okay. Then we finish with that. Thank you very much, Bridget. Very good presentation. Thank you. Right. Moving on then to item 8. No, sorry, wrong one. Where is it? Item 10 on revised greenhouse gases. And Anthony or Nick Ireland, would you be interested in this?
Yeah, sorry, I was going to be excited. I just had a letter from Jim McMahon, but it doesn't actually say what we wanted to know, unfortunately. Yeah, so on this particular paper, obviously, it was the ambition and a manifesto promise that we would try, as the Lib Dem administration, to bring our carbon net zero targets down. So this paper is doing it. We shouldn't underestimate how hard it's going to be. In some ways, our own emissions are easy, well, easier, because we have control of them. The vast majority of the carbon cost across Dorset County area is council's area is agricultural. People driving their cars and heating their homes. So we need to do what we can to try and influence that. It's not going to be easy, but I'm confident we can make at least a significant dent in it. So I'll hand over to Anthony, who's going to present the paper, I think.
Thank you, Chair. Introduce myself, I'm Anthony Littlechild, I'm the Sustainability Team Manager, and I have with me Conor Pearson, who's our Carbon Management Officer, and also I have online Carl Werham, who's our Policy Officer. Both have been behind the scenes crunching the numbers to sort of work out this. Just wanted to do a few slides just to sort of set the scene and cover what the paper is about. Broadly speaking, it's about how do we've reset the targets within the council plan, but how do we reach those targets? What trajectories do we want to see, and what targets, 5-year targets, do we want to see in terms of how quickly we want to reduce our carbon emissions? The report also highlights some of the areas of work that we'll need to focus on and accelerate over time. So, as I said, the council plan sets responding to climate and nature crisis as one of its 4 core priorities. Underneath this sets a number of clear commitments, one of which was to bring forward the net zero targets by 5 years. Underpinning that priority, the principal strategy that the council has adopted is its natural environment, climate and ecology strategy. This sets a sort of strategic direction across 3 key themes: reducing carbon emissions or tackling climate change, biodiversity loss or nature, if you like, and resilience. How do we adapt to climate change? It's going to be supported by a number of underpinning strategies, one of which we've heard from today, the local nature recovery strategy, but others that the council is involved in, such as local transport plan, economy strategy, waste strategy. They will all underpin delivery of this strategy and the council's priority. Within that strategy, it sets a number of sort of key missions or key areas of focus, which cover things like buildings and energy, waste, economy, nature, etc. And it sets a number of sort of broad targets, including those on net zero, which currently were set at 2040 within the strategy. So what this paper was asking to do was to adjust those targets in line with the strategy, but also then the actual profiles of how you get there. The strategy itself breaks down into 2 programs: an operational program, how are we going to do things for our own good, for our own sake in our operational estate and our buildings, and a facilitation program, how are we going to support or encourage or engage more widely across the county through all the things that we do. And I'll break down the next couple of bits by those 2 areas. So looking at our operational program, we measure our carbon footprint, and we currently have a trajectory, or had a trajectory, to go to 2040 net zero, which was the orange line that we followed down that. That included that included carbon emissions from a number of different sources, which nationally are broken down by the National Protocol for Greenhouse Gases into what they call scopes. So scope 1 and 2 are those which we have a direct impact or direct influence over. So things like burning fuels in our buildings, heat our buildings, or in our fleet vehicles, and our use of electricity through things like street lighting, etc. And scope 3, which are the things that we have less direct influence over, those are a consequence of our activities, but we have less control and less influence over those areas. And a lot of those are related to, for example, procured services that we have or influenced by national policy or national funding. So, for example, national policy on children travel will influence what we do on Dorset Travel, and national policy on highways will influence how much we spend on highways materials, for example. So the proposal in the paper is to split those two. So we've got scope 1 and 2 as the key targets that we bring forward to 2035. Scope 3, the ones that we have less influence over, remain at 2040. The result of that is that you bring forward, you accelerate the 5-year interim target. So the targets for scope 1 and 2 come forward, and they're set out in the paper in a table, so you can see those. In addition, the consequence of bringing those forward is you effectively, meeting those, you effectively save a year's worth of carbon that we previously would have been emitting. To achieve that, we need to bring forward some of the things that we're already doing. So we already have a capital program of activities across things like our retrofitting our buildings, moving to EV vehicles, looking at how our fleet works, etc. We need to accelerate that, and we're looking at how could we actually do that. What would a beefed up capital program perhaps look like? We're also looking at introducing HVO, which is a hydrogenated vegetable oil, if I got that right, hopefully, which is a much less carbon intensive fuel for our fleet vehicles, and that have a drastic impact. We need to look at how are we going to source our energy. We're currently getting it from the grid, but can we source some of that energy from our own larger scale renewables projects? Currently got a lot of solar panels on our buildings, but could we have a larger scale projects to support that? We also need to recognise that we may not be able to get to reduce all of our emissions to zero, and it'll probably not be able to do so. So we need to have a plan for what do we do with that residual bit if we want to get to net zero. So we need a plan for how do we use things like nature and things like that to offset some of our carbon emissions. We also need to look at funding. We've been very successful at bringing in external funding, particularly to support our capital programme. We're in the case to look at how can we do that going forward, and we have appointed a funding officer to help us look at different models for bringing in funding, either through grants or community funding or private-public funding. And we also, as an organisation, need to make sure that we really fully embed climate and nature across all the things that we do within our services. It needs to be a part of our DNA, part of the way our services are delivered, so that we're not inadvertently doing adverse things that are going to have a negative impact. If I switch to our facilitation programme, so looking at what is our role out across the county, there are three key areas. I guess there's what I've called strategic alignment. So we produce a lot of plans, a lot of place-shaping plans and strategies that influence what happens across the county. We've just heard from the local nature recovery strategy, but also all those others. And we need to make sure that climate and nature is fully embedded in those as we develop those. And a lot of those are currently being developed or soon to be developed. We also need to strengthen our partnership working and our working across the different sectors. So you can see on the left-hand side, our carbon emissions in Dorset are made up from three key sectors: agriculture, travel, and effectively buildings, which is housing and different types of buildings. We need to work with those three key sectors to look at how can we help to bring down, how can we all work together to bring down those emissions. And we also have an important national leadership role in terms of how do we influence and encourage change in national policy. We're not going to be able to do this in Dorset on our own. We're going to need national policy to align, national policy to sort of support us. So in terms of looking at bring forward the targets by 5 years, how do you do that for the county? we've done some sort of evidence gathering and looked at what the national picture is. So the national target is 2050 at the moment, but there is a strong consideration of how could we do that faster. The Committee on Climate Change, who are the government's advisors, have developed 5 scenario-based pathways by looking at sort of what opportunities are there around different ways of behaviour change, different technological solutions, different policy solutions. And that grey range on that slide shows their feasible range of what we could achieve across the country if certain things aligned. So you can see that nearly all of those are achievable by 2045. And we have selected the dark green line on there as our forward trajectory, again, which will bring forward some of our targets and be slightly slower on some of our targets. And that's based on looking at the particular pathway called Balanced Pathway, which is a mixture of policy, technical, and sort of behaviour change. So it's a slightly more ambitious than that, but focused on that feasible trajectory produced by the Committee on Climate Change. In terms of what we need to do to bring forward our activity, again, I've mentioned strategic alignment, so we really need to make sure that it's at the heart of all the strategies and plans that we develop. We need to do more engagement in terms of those key sectors in particular, but also with all of our other partners, community partners, town and parish councils, schools, all those other areas. We've started the process, or about to start the process of looking at a local area energy plan. So a strategic plan for what are the energy requirements for Dorset. If you look at sort of renewable energy or transport, all those different areas, what are the strategic requirements across the county? And we're just about to engage with some consultants and other local authorities to do that. We've got some really good programs in place like Healthy Homes Dorset, Low Carbon Dorset, looking at retrofitting on a smaller scale, businesses, community, public sector organisations and residents' homes. And we need to sort of strengthen that and look at, is there a strategic way of drawing in more funding nationally to sort of support those programs and grow those programs? We need to, again, look at how do we meet that residual emissions that we might end up with, what programs could we put in place for sequestration, how do we draw in more money, in particular, how do we draw in all that different types of funding we're going to need, develop a strategy for how we're going to adapt to climate change across the county. So that work has sort of started and will pick up this year. And we need to sort of think of in terms of the economy. Now, how do we grow the economy while looking at tackling climate change and nature? And there's a huge number of opportunities for doing that, and particularly in terms of bringing forward sort of larger scale infrastructure type projects. Thanks, Chairman. That was just a very rapid gander through, conscious of the time.
Thank you. A very, very good presentation. Thank you very much for that. And bearing in mind the lack of time, I think you've done a good job of putting across the issues to people very well. David Taylor. Yeah. Yes. If you'd like to, yes.
Beacon Ward. Thank you very much for the run-through and those additional points. I had several questions, but quite a lot of it you've sort of highlighted there, so I'm comfortable with a lot of that now. And we've heard also today in the previous paper around the biggest harms and dangers to nature. And actually with my main question, I wasn't quite sure where I should be asking it, on which paper. So I've gone for the last one. Whether or not that's right, I'm sure you'll let me know, Chairman. So it's really around resilience and what I have been witnessing in my own ward, and I know it's happening across the county. And I've also seen the impact of climate change increase since I've been elected in 2011 in this particular area. It is absolutely fact, and I'm seeing it increasing year on year, and now it's reaching a really crucial, dangerous point in my mind, and that is given the increasing frequency and severity of flooding events affecting our communities, while also addressing the reduction in emissions, that we must also address the immediate impacts of climate change, which are those floods. Whilst Dorset Council has made commendable progress in reducing its own emissions, and you've spoken about a lot of that, and for its ambitions, there appears to be a lack of focus on actually implementing the protection and protective measures for our residents and the infrastructure against current climate-induced challenges in these revisions. Considering what funding, and I know, and you mentioned it, and now you have an expert, the council has a very good track in bidding for funding, and that opportunities may be available, such as, I don't know, flood and coastal resilience innovation programs, flood mitigation assistance, the flood resilience task force monies. I think AONB did get some money from there. So will officers consider seeking more funding, flood protection in particular, as an urgent priority, which can be used to develop and implement some really effective, robust flood mitigation strategies to complement reduction in emissions. I'm not going to refer to any particular areas in my ward because I don't want to be parochial, but additionally, and at this point, I must mention publicly the incredible work Roland Skeet and Patrick Carpenter in the north have been doing to aid residents dealing with the most recent flooding. I'm sorry that Councillor Andrews isn't in the room anymore because I know he'll support that, but there is no mention in the revisions of support of overextended highways teams, providing them with this support in establishing schemes to safeguard the homes which are being flooded, actually flooded, people bailing out in areas where this has not happened before, and communities from the adverse effects of this extreme weather. So the approach would complement the proposed emission reduction efforts and provide immediate relief to those currently impacted by climate-related events. So we must be looking to invest in protecting our communities and our residents and their homes.
Thank you. Did you want to comment on that?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the question. I can't comment personally on in terms of our responses to flooding, because that doesn't fit within our remit. But I just wanted to pick up on the fact that it's great that you've highlighted resilience as one of the really important things that we need to tackle, and the fact that we're starting already to see escalations of things as a result of climate change just adds to the need and the emergency to get on and sort of develop a strategic approach to resilience across the county. So what we're looking at doing is two things. One is looking at ourselves as a council and how are we resilient to climate change and what does that mean for our services. And the other is how do we work with partners, how do we build on the work that's already going on to come together to help in terms of resilience across the county. So that bit of work will sort of start, but I can't talk directly on flooding.
Thank you. Steve Ford, Corporate Director for Strategy, Performance and Sustainability. So I think it's a really good challenge. The natural environment, climate and ecology strategy does stress that adaptation is one of the three key strands of what we need to be looking at, both as a council but also as in terms of our wider systems leadership as well. What I would say is that certainly when I started out in sustainability many years ago now, the focus was probably 90 to 95% on mitigation, and adaptation was kind of like just the 5% at the end. That most definitely now has shifted, and it is shifting very, very quickly to, if you're going to look at numbers, sort of 70-30 or whatever, you could argue it could be more or less, but adaptation is now key. And I think where we need to get stronger, and this is something that we are working on a team, is how do we make it more of a strategic approach? The flood and coastal risk management team are doing great things in terms of securing funds to look at coastal erosion, how we can manage that to the best of our abilities. There's quite a lot of community resilience activity going on. Communities themselves are trying to find ways to deal with this. You've got the Environment Agency who are also looking at different resilience approaches. But what isn't happening is it's not being brought together in a strategic way. Now, as Anthony mentioned earlier, we are trying to get ahead of the curve. We've done like vulnerability assessments of some of our own services, and where a lot of other local authorities just look at flooding, so they think, oh, we need to speak to the Environment Agency or we need to speak to Natural England. It is not just about flooding. This is about our health services. This is about our infrastructure. This is about our ability to develop economic sectors. It's about business continuity. It's so much wider than just looking at floods, because it can be extreme temperatures and it can, all those things need to be looked at. So we've invested in terms of our team in capacity to solely focus now on how we get this strategic approach to adaptation. And we're also working very closely with Bridget's team as well, because some of the solutions to becoming more resilient lie in how we manage our natural environment as well, because natural flood risk management solutions sometimes are more appropriate and more cost effective than large sort of civil engineering works. But we absolutely recognise that this is an area that we need to strengthen our approach on.
Thank you. Carl Warham, I think online you have some comments to make.
Thank you, Chair. And yes, just to agree with what I stated, really, we are currently midway through the process of trying to do a council resilience assessment.
Sorry, we can't actually hear you. Your sound quality is too low for us to hear you.
Oh, sorry.
Maybe you should take your headphones off.
Is that still?
Sorry.
Is that still not quite working?
Have you got any headphones?
I do, yeah, but it normally picks it up fine without them. It's fine. I'll pass and I'll come back.
I'm sorry, we still can't really hear you. I think I'll come back to you maybe later on. Sorry. Sorry, did you want to come back on that?
Thank you. Yeah, sorry, Carl, we can hear what you were going to say, and I'm sure it was pertinent. Thank you for that response. I suppose the issue is really around my residents. Our residents want to know what's going to happen, when, how, now, and are we going to be able to be part of an understanding what that's going to be moving forward? I know these are impossible things for you to timeline, but it's happening now and they want action. So if we could maybe have further discussions on what that might look like and what's available, I'd be really grateful, and I know my residents certainly would be. Thank you.
Belinda, for that.
Thanks, Belinda Borden, Lyme Regis in Charmouth. So, as you know, this is why I got into local government. It's why I stood for my town council, because I didn't think enough was being done at political level. So I'm interested in whether or not, did we put a submission into the DESLES consultation on how do we get to net zero recently? I think it closed on the 13th of January or something, and it was possibly one of these things they announced before Christmas and then had a very tight deadline, because they were asking for people to input. And yeah, I was just on similar lines about the adaptation. Do we need to set up some sort of multi-agency group, as they have in Devon? The Devon Climate Emergency has multiple organisations from the parishes, the districts, the county councils, city councils, the universities, big business, community groups and individuals. And that's been working together on both mitigation and adaptation for, I want to say, at least 5 years. And we don't seem to have that. There still is quite a big disconnect for me. So I teach carbon literacy, which is essentially mostly about reducing emissions, but it also obviously talks about nature recovery and adaptation as well, specifically to town and parish councils and community groups. And it's very focused on their setting and what they can do in their role sort of from the ground up. I know that some senior managers have undertaken carbon literacy training, so I think there is a possibility. I'm hoping that we could potentially work together to do some more of the community engagement along that. But sadly, we've just had to, we being Dorset Climate Action Network, had to cancel our February workshops because nobody booked on them. And it's a massive amount of work, and we're doing it as volunteers because we believe passionately in this. So, the offer is there. I think we can help to sort of join up some of this work. Also just to say the government's target on decarbonising the grid is actually 2030, and yet at the same time, whenever we've tried to do anything locally, and I know that Councillor Bartlett's committee had a working group on the grid capacity, we are told in Lyme Regis that we can't do anything. We can't have an electric bike rental hub, or we can't have electric charging points, or we can't, whatever it is we try to do, we can't because there is not enough grid capacity. And I think talking to some of the experts, they've said that nationally, there's a risk we can't do that before 2035. So I'm confused. I think there's a lot more we can do, and we can help with the various Zero Carbon Dorset, Sustainable Dorset, Dorset Climate Action Network. We would love to work very constructively together to help link everything up. But I'm also confused about the government situation and the grid capacity.
Yes, having been a part of that working process, it is very frustrating that they continually point to a date too far off in the future to actually be very practical use at all. And so we do have to press the grid on doing. Did you want to add any comments to that, any of you?
Thanks, Chairman. Thank you for the question. So on two things. One, in terms of community engagement, yes, definitely that's what we're trying to and need to sort of do more of, and we're trying to work out ways of doing that, working with the various groups. In terms of grid infrastructure, members will be aware that there was a grid inquiry commissioned by Scrutiny Committee last year before, and lots of feedback through the councillors. There's lots of reform going on around the grid and national energy infrastructure, and lots of work going on at a national level, looking at how the whole system works in terms of investment and planning, and how does the grid going to support the whole country's move to net zero. So that is going on very actively at the moment. I've now completely forgotten what I was going to say. Also, part of doing the value of doing the local area energy plan process is that you develop a plan of what Dorset needs for its energy infrastructure, and that's already recognised as a key thing in terms of influencing the infrastructure that develops within the area. So again, that was one of the things which came out from the scrutiny inquiry, was that we needed to develop a local area energy plan, which is very soon to happen.
Okay, I have to point out at this point, our time limit of 3 hours is pretty much up. Now, somebody could move for an extension for another half an hour if you'd like to do that, or we could just wrap it up and vote on where we are. So, okay, right. We'll carry on for another half an hour then. Thank you very much. David Taylor, I believe you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, excellent presentation, because we're beginning to understand where we're going now with regard to the environment. Again, you've identified communication is the one thing I was going to come back on. First of our agenda today is the fact that it involves the public as well as us, as councillors, as well as officers, etc., etc. So therefore, the communication aspect needs to be opened up across the board, because we do have a lot of eminent people living in the area and people that want to know what's going on. So the fact of siloing is the key area which we've moved away from, as in the council. Pollution, the grants, dates, you're absolutely right, Linda. The fact is that we don't know where we are. It's all over the show, 30, 40, 50, 60. We really don't know what's going on with central government. But that's the question to me, is that we need to really identify where we're going forward on our dates so we can actually stick to them, so we know what's happening on that one there. Third score, pollution, is the fact like your trajectory going down to net zero. We know the elephant in the room. It might not come. Portland, incinerator. We don't know, but we're thinking on that one there. I'd like to leave on a happy note, if that's all right. The fact is that I just looked at a very interesting program across in America of solar panels, where the fact is they're using solar panels which are upright, and they're actually growing crops between them. And this is where it's very big, and I think we should be seriously looking at this, because we're culminating two key areas here. It's on our agriculture, our food production, and our energy. So that's the key question to say, hope we're looking at that too. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So we are aware of the upright solar, and it's definitely part of our considerations among the plethora of sort of technology developments that frame a lot of the work that we do. But I think that the point that it sort of emphasises in some ways is that, and I think came back, Councillor Gibson and others were talking earlier about sometimes it feels like there can be an opportunity cost if we're going to do climate versus are we going to go for straight growth, or are we going to look at nature? But I think that if we work together and if we are strategic in what we do, the grid has got a problem because we're trying to do things locally and push it back out to the grid, and the grid can't cope. It was historically centralised. But I think if you look at the climate agenda more broadly, a lot of it is in our control in terms of how we want to develop that economy. So if it's around clean growth, if it's around redefining the way that Portland Port or Weymouth or whatever in terms of a transition to a green, whatever it happens to be, there are solutions. You heard earlier about the nature recovery element and how it can be embedded, and farmers can drive that agenda and just utilise land that they don't use anyway for the purposes of nature recovery without impacting on their actual production. There's always ways and means, but it can be difficult. It can be really difficult. But I think, but that sort of technology is an example where I think we might be able to be innovative without taking any land, and they're complementary technologies. So I think that we're always trying to look at those types of solutions.
Councillor Tarr next. Okay. Councillor Gibson.
Thank you, Chairman. Simon Gibson, representing Verwood. I want to make a few statements that I think most people would agree with, but before I go on to say some other things, because I'm conscious these days that actually if you're at all critical about a lot of information in this, you actually very quickly get a label that I think is undeserved. I believe that climate change is real. I believe that it is an urgent priority. I believe that we need to take action. Everyone needs to take action. And I also believe that the carbon element of it is a vital part of getting on top of climate change as a whole. And I supported the moves that were put in place a while ago to get to carbon zero. The dates that were in place at the time were a debatable date. There were some people then saying, actually, I don't think we need to go that quickly. I don't think it's a priority for me. I never signed up for that. I felt that we were doing our bit. And the reason I caveat what I'm about to say with all of those things before is because it is that opportunity cost point that I mentioned before. The leader, I'm sorry that the leader's leaving as we're having this debate, because actually I suspect what I'm about to say is actually better answered politically than at an officer level. That's not possible for me now, so I'll follow this up with them later. But the point is, Chairman, is the priority, the justification for this move ahead of what is mandated is because it's in the 4 priorities adopted in the council plan. Those of us that were at the council plan debate at full council will remember the amendment that I put. Unfortunately, it was not successful. The reason I put that was because I feared that it was being over-prioritised in what the residents had told us their priorities were. Important as it is, if everything's a priority, nothing's a priority. So the question for me is whilst I support our work to drive down carbon, absolutely, is the question ultimately that I'm going to be asked as a representative of my ward is this required of us when there are other elements of what the council does that actually we really do struggle to meet our minimum standards? And therefore, actually, any money, any time, any resource that we put into this is an opportunity cost into something else that the council is required to do. I'm not sure I know fully the answer to that, and I'm trying to be as much for your benefit, Chairman, as positive as I can about this, because I know that we need to do something. But my worry is that by going further than we are required to at this stage, what is the opportunity cost of that? The report in the financial implications sets out that there was a £10 million budget, of which £6 million has already been used. I'm assuming that is broadly the capital budget that we've allocated towards this, and that's fine. Stephen, I know how hard you and your team have worked to bring money into the council. I think you should be commended for that, because it's excellent to have so much money come into Dorset Council to solve a problem that I agree with. But there's a few details missing in the report, and perhaps not for answering today, but for the next time we see the report. The report says that there is revenue considerations in the budget, but those details aren't in the report. So I wasn't able to get to Cabinet last night, so I don't know what they are. I'd be grateful to know what the revenue impact of this work is beyond what we'd already had in our budget when the original target was in place, because that is an opportunity cost. And I'd also quite like to know, it talks about most of the projects being self-funded, which is great. I fully support that. I'd be keen, perhaps in due course, not now because of the time, to know how. How are they being self-funded? What happens if there is a shortfall? Do we automatically pick up the gap, for example? Because, again, that's an opportunity cost. So if this had no impact on the budget, no impact on provision of other services, I'd have no trouble at all signing up for this. Who'd object to that? But I'm not. It's what's not in the report, I think, that troubles me more than what's in it, because the report, I think, is laudable. So I don't really want to put officers in a position to have to answer a lot of those technical questions now. I would like to hear from the leader in due course, because I think it's his name in the paper politically, about if we prioritise this, what do we deprioritise elsewhere? Because I think ultimately those of us that get sent here will be asked that question by our residents.
Did you want to answer any of those points? Any of the non-political bits, anyway?
I may not be able to answer everything for I think the reasons that have been articulated. But what I would say is that I think it's a bit like the point I made earlier. The climate agenda, I think, sometimes is seen as an agenda in its own right. And I understand why it appears like that, because it's in contested terrain, and I think sometimes the climate agenda can polarise debate, and it's sometimes seen as it's either one way or it's the other. I think what we're trying to do as officers, as to the best of our abilities, is if you look at what residents told us mattered most to them in the last resident survey that we did, things like supporting economic growth and good quality jobs, rural buses, better access to public transport, availability of affordable housing, and also the natural environment, as well as tackling climate change, which were all in the top 10. From our perspective, we have just as much of an onus to try and meet those other resident concerns and priorities as we do for just the pure climate bit, because if we look at them as mutually exclusive as officers in terms of how we are trying to deliver against that, I think we are doing a disservice to not just the council but also to the residents of Dorset as well. So while yes, will there be requirements to fund some elements of the climate programme? Yes, there will. There's no getting away from that. But do we need to strengthen that approach where we make sure that we are driving clean growth and creating those jobs, those high-value, knowledge-based jobs in Dorset, so they are localised here and the benefit is localised here? Absolutely, yes, we do. And that is how I think we have to keep progressing this, so that opportunity cost is diminished to the greatest level possible. So.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for that answer, Stephen. And particularly a really fair point on the clean growth jobs. I think that's a point that is really well made, and actually Dorset looks well set to capitalise on some really good quality jobs off the back of this. And I would never want to underplay the importance of that. I think the real proof will be when we head in towards budget setting time. The resources are really fine in this council as they are elsewhere. And I think the proof in what you say will probably play out in things like our day-to-day highway budgets, our waste services, and if other bits are growing, other bits at a time of pressure, it's hard to say how everything can do that. So I would actually, Chairman, through your good offices, I would like if you could find out after this meeting for me, Stephen, what the revenue impact on the budget is in writing to me so that I can have it. What is the cost of doing this? Because ultimately, I suppose the really simple question that I want to be able to answer to my residents when I do get asked about this, if, for example, roads and bins aren't collected as we would hope they would be, is what is this costing us to do, given that we are going over and above the statutory minimum?
Yeah, I'd be happy to write that to you, yeah, and just set out what the implications are. Happy to do it to all of us. I mean, we have set out the revenue implications of the team in previous reports to a number of committees as well. It's a matter of record now that the climate team is funded via business rates from renewable energy. So it's classified as, don't get me on how this is accounted for, but it's basically counted as a reserve. Now, obviously, if rules change around business rate retention, then that's something that would have to be considered, but that is currently how it is funded. Personally, I think that's quite an innovative way of looking at funding outside of the core budget as well. So, you know, there is an incentive to keep trying to increase renewable energy, you know, through the business rates as well. So there's incentivization for us, not just as a team, but also as a council as well, to try and do that clean energy transition, which hopefully also has the knock-on effect of starting to get that clean energy economic benefit and growth as well. So where I think there may be some slight growth in revenue will be around areas such as whether we look at transitioning like our fuel for our heavy vehicles and large vehicles to HVO. So there is going to be, if that decision is taken, there will be a revenue implication of that. In terms of the team, there's no plans for growth for this team at all. So there will be no revenue taken from another team to fund our activities. But I can put that in writing.
Thank you. I think that does fairly answer your question, hopefully. And if you send around an email to everybody, that would be most appreciated. Did you have anything else? Did you want to give some? No? Councillor Jesperson?
Really briefly, Mr. Chairman, if I could ask if you would add in that reply in writing, if we could also have some details about there's reference to a capital investment proposal that's being brought forward. My question was going to be, is that in the existing budget that's already under discussion, or is that out with the capital budget that we're discussing? You don't have to answer now. That's the question. And what's that for? I mean, the questions that we want that I would like the answers to are basically in your 7.2, 7.3, and 7.4, where you talk about the funding implications of that, but you don't put any figures in. And so basically, you've told us the what. Now, so if you could just fill in the how much, that would answer the question. Thank you very much.
I presume that's because the numbers were changing as the budget position progressed in recent weeks and months. So, but obviously at some point it has to freeze at that point, and that becomes the official budget for the following year. Okay. Is there anybody else who wants anything? No. In which case we go down to the recommendation we're asked before us, which is basically just to send this on to the cabinet, and we are content at least to have more adventurous, stronger targets for getting to net zero. Can I see all those who agree with that? And against? No? Okay. Thank you very much. And that concludes the business for today. Thank you very much for your many comments. Thank you.